Hello there, 6 o'clock on the dot, halfway through the week. It's Wednesday, 13th of September, and you're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Thanks very much for your company. We're delighted to have you. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Pensioners under threat. Up to 12 million families could receive a lower than expected state pension next year, as the government and the opposition both refuse to commit to raising the state pension to match official earning figures.
A GB News exclusive for you as Tobias Ellwood fights to stay on as Defence Committee chairman after he appeared in a video that praised the Taliban government in Afghanistan. Our political correspondent Olivia Utley will bring you the latest from Westminster.
For years, the Tories have been tied to the state pension triple lock. But are they now looking for a loophole? I'll be discussing this and much more, including the very controversial Tobias Ellwood, just after 6 o'clock.
OK, we look forward to seeing how controversial Tobias Ellwood was. Those two, right, they're meeting North Korea's Kim Jong-un. He is in Russia and has held talks with President Putin. Likely to be discussing a deal to supply arms for the war in Ukraine. That is happening live, as you can see there, as we are on air. We will bring you what we can as the programme progresses.
And as always, we'll be bringing you the very latest weather updates today with Annie Shuttleworth.
It's feeling much more like autumn this morning out there, but will the sunshine last through the rest of the day? Find out more with me later in your detailed forecast in the next hour.
Well, from Annie Shuttleworth to Mr. Shuttlecock himself, if he could, I sort of expect...
You heard about
that? Anyway, Paul Coit with the sports, right? It's the morning after the night before.
It is, and as Isabel predicted yesterday, England did manage to beat Scotland 3-1 yesterday, so how about that? Another drugs ban in another sport. This time it's tennis, and it's a former Wimbledon champions ban, and I will reveal why rugby balls are flying further than they ever have.
Really?
World Cup. Yes, there's a
OK, all right, good.
In between the kicking, that is. Right, you can join in any of our discussions. Email us, gbnews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet us at GBNews.
OK, here's the top story this morning. It's about pensions. It's making front pages in the papers today. Sneaky changes, the Express are calling this, to pension triple lock. 12 million people could be affected by receiving a smaller than expected increase. The Work and Pensions Secretary has refused to commit to raising pensions to match official overall earnings.
Well, under the government's triple lock pledge, next year's pensions are meant to rise by the highest of 2.5% inflation or average wages. And data suggests this was likely to be 8.5%. That's the average wage figure for the summer months, hugely boosted, of course, by those public sector bonuses.
Are you with us so far? Right. So it's well, anyway, let's go to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. She's well across all of this one. So basically, Olivia, why is neither the government or the opposition committing to saying, look, you're OK under us? Is it just too costly?
Well, the short answer, Eamonn, is yes, it is just too costly. The Conservatives are desperate to find some sort of workaround to the pensions triple lock. As Isabel said there, according to the Conservatives' own promise, every year they have to raise the state pension by inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%, whichever is the highest. We know, of course, that inflation is very high at the moment, but actually it's not quite as high as wage growth. Wage growth is up to 8.5%. So according to the Tories' own rules, their own manifesto commitment, they have to raise pensions by 8.5%. It now looks like they might not do that. It seems as though they found a little bit of a loophole. Earnings are usually calculated in terms of the salary of the average person in the population plus bonuses. So that's both private sector bonuses and public sector bonuses. Now the Conservatives are saying that they might try and leave bonuses out of the equation. So instead calculate the state pension triple lock rise on average earnings alone. Now you might not think that would make a huge difference, but it really does. Instead of raising pensions by 8.5%, they would only have to raise pensions by 7.6%. Now that would save the Treasury about £630 million but it would leave about 12 million pensioners £74 worse off every year than they would have been under the old arrangement. So it could be some good news for the Treasury, but really bad news for pensioners.
To an election, and of course that's why neither party wants to commit to changing, but in all reality, as Mel Stride admitted yesterday, this isn't sustainable in the long term, and this could well be the last time we see this coalition policy.
But those pensioners are important, as Isabel points out, in terms of actually voting. Who are they more important to, Labour or the Conservatives?
Well, traditionally, they have been more important to the Conservatives. The grey vote, as it's known, tends to go to the Conservatives. But, of course, we know that pensioners are far more likely to turn out either way in a general election. It's often said that young people are ignored when it comes to policy making around general elections because really so few of them turn out. Among those over 65, the voting numbers are absolutely huge. So neither the Conservatives nor Labour quite want to come out and say that they're prepared to break the pensions triple lock, as it were. But as you say, Isabel, neither party is really prepared to commit to it either, on the grounds that in the long term it is becoming unsustainable. We're having more and more pensioners because people are simply living longer and longer. So raising that pension every single year by sometimes up to 10% does feel like it's becoming almost impossible.
Should we talk about Tobias Ellwood? Unless people at home are real Westminster watchers, he's probably most famous for trying to resuscitate PC Palmer outside Parliament after that awful terror attack. He was in all the headlines at the time for that. Hugely influential in the world of defence. But then he went off to Afghanistan and did a rather wacky video. Let's have a look at it first, and then we'll find out what his future looks like from you, Olivia. Let's take a look.
Well, I'm here back in Helmand province in Afghanistan, courtesy of the Halo Trust, and all that's happened here since 9/11. This is a very different country indeed. It feels different now that the Taliban have returned to power.
Well, it may be hard to believe, but security has vastly improved, corruption is down, and the opium trade has all but disappeared. Pylons distribute electricity to the cities. Solar panels are now everywhere, powering irrigation pumps, allowing more crops to grow. And the Halo Trust, the world's largest mine-clearing charity, is removing tons.
So how can he stay chairman of the Defence Select Committee after making comments like that, Olivia?
Well, as you say, I mean, these comments were absolutely astonishing, saying that Afghanistan now has more solar panels after the arrival of the Taliban, when, of course, that we know millions of children and young women are no longer able to go to school or to complete higher education because of the Taliban's draconian form of rule. So these were really deeply misguided, misjudged comments. But it comes as quite a surprise. Tobias Ellwood, he's sort of on the left of the Conservative Party. He is a real expert in defence, along with Bob Seeley. He's probably one of the most knowledgeable Conservative MPs on the subject of Ukraine. And he's been a very popular chairman of the Defence Committee. Now, though, we're expecting the members of the Defence Committee to probably vote to remove him as their chairman. Today, they're voting on a measure, we no longer have confidence in our chairman. And because the Defence Select Committee is made up of a number of Labour MPs who are pretty much all expected to vote against Tobias Ellwood, and a number of Conservative MPs, only 2 of whom would have to vote against him for him to lose his position, it does look pretty likely that he's going to be off.
Yeah, Ben Wallace, former Defence Secretary, he's been speaking, and he's saying, Olivia, that human rights laws have become a serious risk in national security and they're thwarting efforts to stop terrorism. What do you make of that?
Well, it's quite interesting because he's just the latest of a number of cabinet ministers who have been making noises in that direction. The European Court of Human Rights is a very, very controversial subject in the Conservative Party. Those generally, I'm making sweeping generalisations here, but generally those on the left of the Conservative Party think that the European Court of Human Rights is absolutely essential. Britain being part of it is necessary for us to be able to uphold our fantastic human rights record, whereas those on the right of the Conservative Party worry that it's become a sort of stranglehold. Whenever migrants come to this country illegally, it's very, very hard to deport them because human rights lawyers intervene and take up their cases under the laws of the European Court of Human Rights. So Suella Braverman, Home Secretary, is very, very keen herself. It's not yet government policy, but she is very keen personally to leave the European Court of Human Rights in an effort to get her Rwanda plan really over the line. And now we're seeing cabinet ministers line up behind her. Ben Wallace, of course, no longer the Defence Secretary, but still very, very influential in the Conservative Party.
Olivia, thanks for your take on things. We're going to get reaction. We're going to talk to you again later in the programme. So what do you think of human rights laws protecting terrorists? Tobias Ellwood speaking out in favour of the Taliban. Your views very welcome. GBviews at gbnews.com. Now, in the last hour, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has held talks with President Putin. Pictures just in, let's see them, from the Russian Space Centre, where the two leaders had this talk, we believe, but we're not sure exactly what has been discussed.
Yes, and which other meetings are due to take place during the leaders' visits. It's not yet clear. The focus likely to have been for North Korea to supply military equipment for Moscow's war in Ukraine. Let's get the views this morning of the journalist Danny Armstrong, who joins us from Moscow this morning. Looks like a coalition of the desperate to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly two pariah states meeting. These are two delegations from North Korea and from Russia that we're going to meet. Well, have met in the Russian Far East, around about 10 or 11 time zones away from here in Moscow. Now, what's interesting is how it's been reported here. The visit of Kim Jong-un, who crossed the border into Russia yesterday in his armoured train. It's his first meeting with a head of state since North Korea closed its borders, and it's quite significant that he would meet with Vladimir Putin. Of course, military cooperation is on the table, but it's only one of the things that they're going to talk about. The main theme is bilateral cooperation. The Kremlin put it as sensitive issues to be discussed. It certainly is very sensitive. The Eastern Economic Forum has also been going on in Russia's Far East. Now, the meeting of Kim Jong-un and North Korea and Russia is significant because it indicates the characteristics of Russia's foreign policy of late, and that's certainly to focus on those ties with Eastern allies, with India, China, the rest of the BRICS countries, Africa, and also, countries away from the US. Now, it seems as though Vladimir Putin said yesterday he's been saying time and time again about the decline of the US, about the decline of the dollar, about the meaningless, the fact that sanctions don't really mean anything against Russia because the dollar is so weak. We've seen BRICS countries rumoured to start their own currency, and it's sort of indicative of Russia's moving away from that and going to start their own things in the Far East. I mean, to put it in a football analogy, I know you're a big fan of football, Eamonn, it's as if Russia's saying, well, you're taking your ball home to the US and thumbing their nose at them and saying, well, we've got our own game now, we've got our own teammates, and we're going to play and we're going to win, and you better hurry.
Interesting analogy, Danny. Thank you for painting such a good picture for us. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Well, the time is now 30 minutes past 6 o'clock.
If you are just tuning in, a reminder of our top stories this morning. Both the government and Labour are refusing to commit to raising the state pension to match official overall earnings figures.
Weather update, Annie Shuttleworth with that.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime, and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain rain arriving later, so it will start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere, though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight, then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that, it'll be a milder night tonight than last night. Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast, it'll feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Stay with us, still to come. Paul Coit will be here with reaction to last night's England v Scotland match.
And GB News will be the first to bring you a government minister live with more on their plans to support the NHS into the winter. Have we heard it all before?
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, wherever you are, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, you're very welcome. Eamonn and Isabel here at breakfast on GB News.
Let's bring you up to date with this morning's top stories. And Libya has been hit with extreme flooding, with at least 2,300 people believed to have been killed so far. Rescue teams are struggling to retrieve victims who've been swept out to sea in tsunami-like floodwaters. Approximately 10,000 people are reported missing, with the death toll expected to rise.
That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
So the US House of Representatives will open a formal impeachment into President Joe Biden. Senior Republican Kevin McCarthy said the investigation would focus on allegations of abuse of power, obstruction and corruption, which is a strange thing because the president hasn't been linked.
He hasn't done
anything. But his son, who's got a very stupid name.
Hunter.
Well, what would you... Hello, Hunter. Who have you know called Hunter?
I've got a friend.
And you could get that
Hunter.
name very... You could say it
Woody,
wrong.
their kids are called. Stop it.
You could.
Anyway.
There's Hunter. He's a right old... You know, but it's... No, it's... You know what I mean, don't you?
I know exactly
right.
Chortling in the wings.
Hunter and Woody, weren't they in Toy Story, those two? Isn't that right?
I don't think Hunter was. Woody's from Toy Story.
Okay, fine.
Hunter's a good
So we know
American
nobody
name.
is called Hunter
In America, they
in the
are.
whole world.
They are.
There's nobody
Their
in the
name's
whole
like
world
Chip in America
called
and-
Hunter except Joe Biden's son.
Anyway.
It's a stupid name. It's like calling yourself Tree or something, or like Hunter. Well, it's so stupid. But anyway, he's in it up to there. He is. He deserves a bit of investigation. It has to be said. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle.
Yes, she made an impromptu speech at her first Invictus Games, making headlines this morning. She gave an emotional address to 1,600 competitors, friends and family at a party held in Dusseldorf. The Duchess of Sussex apologised for being late and explained she was spending time with her children.
Does she ever do anything else but spend time with her children?
Stop it, there's nothing wrong with that.
As if she's the only one that has children and spends time with them.
Exactly. How does the Princess of Wales manage?
Indeed,
She's
Isabel.
got 3.
And she's got great hair. I was noticing yesterday.
Just on the front of the sun.
I'll tell you what, when I look at her, Isabel, I think I'm looking at you.
Oh, gosh, I
look at
wish.
her. Bouncy, flowy, all that hair every day. There's a lot of hair going on
She's
there.
got a lot of hair. She's got bangs now.
Right.
New bangs. Check out the pictures. Maybe we'll try and get those in the papers later on.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll do that later on. Somebody who isn't so blessed on the hair front. Paul Coyte.
Sporty and posh, I think. Not for me, but for Isabel and for Kate. You know,
Yes.
it's what I dreamed of when I was at school. Really.
Yeah.
You know?
You could swap Isabel and the was she the Princess of Wales, is she?
Oh, please, I wish.
Is she? You could be a doppelganger.
No, I don't.
It's like me and George Clooney.
Yeah.
Never seen together in the same room.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Did I ever tell
Yeah.
you I went to see George Clooney's barber?
No.
Yeah.
I've heard lots of George Clooney stories, but I've never heard the barber story.
Did he get you confused?
Did you go on purpose?
He thought it was George. But the trouble is he couldn't speak English, so I don't really know what he was saying.
Right. He was going, who the hell is this strange man
Yeah.
thinking he's George Clooney? Is probably what he was
But in Lake Como, there's this little tiny barber's.
Yeah.
And that's where George goes. And there's
Yeah.
pictures of George on the wall and things.
Why did you go there, Eamonn?
Huh?
Why would you go for a haircut?
Did
on
you go
holiday?
there because you thought...
No, we went there to see George's house, and my wife then stupidly climbed up the front gate outside, and then suddenly all these sirens went off, and the police came out and arrested her.
Oh my!
Really?
Pity they didn't keep her.
My goodness, is she a massive George fan?
We were filming.
Right.
Oh,
It was,
I broke into the cemetery where Marilyn Monroe's buried. I've done that before.
Have you?
Yeah. I was having this is quite a feew years ago, and I was outside, and it was late, and it'd been an evening. It had been a bit of an evening.
Oh,
I said, well,
okay.
it's there. It's close. Let's see if we can break in. So I managed to climb over the top, went through, and then I started seeing the torches,
Oh, no.
and I thought, I'm in trouble. Hiding behind... This is disrespectful, isn't it? Hiding behind gravestones. And I almost got caught on the top of the spiked railings.
Yes.
Couldn't get myself off.
Oh.
That's why I have a slight limp, even to this day.
Even to this day?
Even to this day.
So you're a ghoul, really?
I'm a ghoul.
You're a ghoul. You know,
I'm a
someone
boy,
who
I'm not a ghoul.
morbid, stalks dead bodies in
Oh,
graveyards.
I wouldn't say it was that bad. It's
don't know.
not like Burke and Hare or any of that. It just wanted to pay tribute.
I tell you what's
I
bad.
think Marilyn would have loved it.
The match last night, the England thing, and
Yes.
I really felt for him, as if things weren't bad enough for Harry Maguire.
Yes.
So therefore, he can't hold down a place at club level at Man United. Southgate stands by him for
Correct.
England, and then the own goal last night.
Yeah, so unfortunate. I mean, England played really well, and they were 2-0 up at half-time. Mark Gay goes off, and then on comes Harry Maguire. Now, the Scottish fans, excuse me, surprise, surprise, are giving him a tough time, which is an away fan, which is understandable. But it's just not what he needs. And then to make it 2-1, own goal, sticks his foot out, ball goes in the back of the net, and it's just the last thing that Harry Maguire needs. And you know, he's the most expensive defender ever. He's taunted, and Gareth Southgate was saying that the treatment that he's had has been a joke. He just thinks it's been bad, but also not only from fans, but also from the press as well. He thinks.
But you know, they all talk. Everybody goes on about how they care about mental health. #BeKind. I mean, seriously, there's some footballers, you know, who just get abuse above and beyond. You know, whatever. Just my view. Well, I think it's a difficult situation for him going ahead.
I think it's worse. It's one thing when away fans do it, but when it's your own fans, which he's had, then you think, what on earth?
I think he should have taken the move to West Ham.
Well, there's talk about it's whether it was down to money.
It was.
And he should have gone. He should have gone. It would already been a fresh start because, let's face it, he's not playing at Manchester United. It is a bizarre situation. You're not playing in your club team, but you're playing for England still. But he's done OK for England. So it is an unfortunate thing when you've got 60,000 people booing you. It's not great.
Well, we know what that's like.
We do know exactly what that's like. I always say they're still booing the last guy when I'm on. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
I walked into Anfield one time.
Oh, did you?
Right.
That went down well, didn't it?
Oh, my God. I can't tell the viewers and listeners exactly what they chanted at me, but it wasn't.
Is it Eamonn, you're something like that? Was that how it went?
No.
No,
I can't really say, but anyway, it was very effective. But it was a strange feeling just of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Hating you. But then we lost the game 3-1 and they loved me coming out. They were hugging me, kissing me, everything. They're all so happy.
And I'm not having any of your nonsense.
Happy.
Keep away from me.
Now, we talked about dopes yesterday. We talked about Paul Pogba.
We did.
And this time we're heading to tennis.
We are, and it's Simona Halep, former Wimbledon champion, 2019, two-time Grand Slam winner. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because we had Pogba, and it seems that different sports we're beginning to see, because it's always been focused around athletics, boxing, football, and now Halep as well. And she's the first, probably well-known tennis player since Maria Sharapova. So it's a 4-year ban. So this test was at the last US Open. So she tested positive for something called roxadustat, which basically is an anti-anemia drug, stimulates production of red blood cells, obviously, and anyway, and it's the usual thing. It's in supplements. I had no idea about it. It's in the supplements. So they did check, and then it was agreed that, yes, that's possible that it was in the supplements, but not the amount that was in her body or in her blood. So, therefore, she's going to be banned. She's going to appeal, as they always do. So a 4-year ban, that'll take her up to the age of 35, and that'll probably be the end of the career, I think.
I got on an airplane once, and do you know the luggage above your seats, you know, your bags go and whatever, and you might have to stand your tiptoes to do that. Maria Sharapova was in the seat in front of me, and I mean, she's tall.
She is.
She's tall. You know, to look at her, she is an athlete.
How high above the seat of the chair was she? Way above shoulders, above the seat?
Honestly, she could have just lifted it. She just eye level of
Yeah.
It was very long legs.
What does she have in the were there tennis rackets in there?
Of course there was a tennis racket. What
was
do you
there?
think?
Well, I don't know whether people
going to put a tennis racket in.
Eamonn wasn't looking at her luggage by the sounds of things.
See, the thing is, I can't understand
and it was
why.
Only, like, it wasn't first class or anything. It was like an economy flight.
Really?
No. Are you sure it was Sharapova?
Because you hadn't got any choice, you know.
Right.
It's probably a lookalike with a tennis racket.
No,
people are going, it's George Clooney and Maria Sharapova. I can't believe it, on my flight.
On the same
economy.
On the same flight. OK, so Rugby World Cup, right, where are we at?
Yeah, quick word on that. Now, we're with Tom Curry, banned for the next 2 World Cup matches because of the high tackle. We were sent off after a couple of minutes. I mean, 2 minutes. This is one thing we've got a problem with, is discipline with the England team. Too many red cards. So he's going to miss the games against Japan, and also there's the other game as well, which is Chile. But, you know, the interesting thing that he has to do is this World Coaching Intervention class, which is almost like a driver awareness course that they call it Tackle School, which just seems bizarre. So they have to, what they have to do, go through this. They have to show that they can demonstrate the correct tackling technique. I mean, they've done it all their life.
Yes, but this is without the danger, isn't it?
But surely it's if they're going to say, we want you to... You've got to film it several times, show us you can do it. So they're going to know, oh, yeah, there you go, I'll do that a couple of times. There we are, that's it. It's not... Is it really, truly going to stop high tackles? These players know what to do. So they need to show them.
You look at football and whatever, and when you see a leg-breaking tackle or something really vicious, I mean, I would have to respond. If someone went in high on me, I'd just clock them, I'd just turn around and hit them. I'd be sent off
Once
and
you've
say,
woken up,
I'll take
yeah.
the card. But anybody who's, you know, who's trying to break your leg, pretty vicious, pretty awful.
I agree, but this is like this course. It's like saying to someone that's done that, a really bad foul, and go, right, now you've got to show us how you tackle normally. They know that. They know how to do it. It's just that these things will then come up, but they've just got to stop doing it. So really, bans is the only way, and then they'll learn and then stop doing it. But as far as the course is concerned, yeah, it's a bit of a strange one.
OK, come back. Sorry?
I was just going to say, Eamonn, we've had an email in about the name Hunter.
Oh, no, there's somebody pretending they're called Hunter.
No,
What?
it's Dave, actually. Dave's got in touch. The name Hunter is a mark of respect to Joe Biden's first wife. Her surname was Hunter, and she died in a tragic accident.
Oh, dear.
Well, she may well have still a stupid name to
There's another
inflict on your
famous Hunter.
kids.
Hunter Davis. Hunter Davis, legendary journalist, wrote a book about the Beatles.
Oh, you're right.
Hunter Davis, a fantastic fella. There's the only...
Yeah.
He's the only, I believe,
No, actually,
British
you're
Hunter
quite
there
right.
is.
I've spoken to that guy before. Yeah. OK.
That's 2 Hunters now.
So there we go. Wonderful.
3. My friend is...
There's 3 Hunters.
3
Thanks,
hunters in the whole world. 6:30 is the time. Still to come, a closer look at what's making the headlines on print, online, anywhere you have one. We'll make a story out of it. It's Headline Makers with David Miller and Scarlett Maguire. Don't forget to miss it. Next.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning at 6:32. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Yes, wakey, rise and shine. We're here until 9:30 this morning. And here's a reminder of the top stories.
Up to 12 million families could receive a smaller than expected increase in their state pensions next year as the government refuses to commit to raising the state pension to match overall earnings figures.
MP Tobias Ellwood could be forced out as chairman of the House of Commons Defence Select Committee over a video in which he praised the Taliban in Afghanistan.
And North Korea's Kim Jong-un has been meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in the last few moments. We believe they've been discussing a possible arms trade deal.
And coming up, we'll be hearing what the government's plans are to support the NHS this winter. Will it be enough? We can answer that now. Of course it won't. Right, front pages now, and we've got Scarlett Maguire, and we've got David Miller. And on the front page of The Times, MI5 secretly warned the Conservatives that 2 of its potential candidates to become MPs could be spies for China.
Year of the Shoplifter is the headline for the Mirror this morning. They're leading with Britain's shop workers demanding help to fight this epidemic of shoplifting that is rocking Britain's high streets.
Daily Mail, government considering watering down next year's pension increase, with the Pension Secretary saying the policy is unsustainable.
Forget about giving 100% at work. 85% is the optimum. It's the secret of success, according to the Daily Star.
And the terrible flooding in Libya leaves thousands of people dead. The story featured front page of The Guardian. David and Scarlett, I want to talk first of all about Tobias Ellwood. And I don't know if you saw this clip from this video, which he says that, you know, the country's more stable, there's less drug trafficking going on, they've got loads of solar panels. That all may well be true. But you have to balance that against the morality of the state that they run. Can you begin to work out why he said what he said?
David? Well, I know Tobias very well, and he's a brave man. He was the one, if you remember, went to the rescue of that poor police officer who was attacked and stabbed to death in Westminster. And I personally have a lot of time for him, but he does tend these days towards a bit of eccentricity. I know what he means. He'll mean to be saying they're not all bad, but they are so bad that it's anything that you say in their favour is always going to sound like special pleading and going to sound as though you've lost your marbles a bit.
Yeah, it's a cross-party select committee. Do you think he's going to survive this vote of no confidence?
No, I don't think he will. I mean, there is no question that before we invaded Afghanistan, that the Taliban have a much better handle on the opium trade. I mean, I remember talking to government ministers and saying, what's the problem? And they said, well, the Taliban are just better than us at stopping opium. And there was chaos when we invaded. But to not say what it's like to be female in Afghanistan, the incredible oppression, I mean, not just of women, but I mean anybody who thinks outside. And then, you know, to listen to the Taliban saying, oh, well, you know, it's God's law. Meanwhile, I mean, of course, they send their daughters abroad to get educated. I mean, this is appalling, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I went to Afghanistan as a minister, and there's no doubt that it's a place that people have found it over the centuries almost impossible to run. And the British Raj law used to run, I think, 50 yards off the road. They had no higher ambitions than that. And it's just an extremely difficult place, but there's no doubt about it. It's fueled by drugs, and the Taliban control the drugs business.
Yeah, and it is such a pity for a man like Tobias Ellwood, who in real life is a hero. You know, that Westminster Bridge attack and trying to revive the police officer stabbed at the other end.
He just hasn't thought it through. I mean, that's the problem, is you can say, you know, look, the Taliban are really, really oppressive, but we do have to understand that these things are better. And actually, I mean, David, when I was in Afghanistan, what you notice is it's like literally on the faces of the people are all the different people who've invaded Afghanistan and failed. I mean, that's the other thing, is there isn't an answer to Afghanistan.
You didn't have with Khyber rifles halfway up the pass into Afghanistan. That is at least one thing. I'm getting away saying I had lunch with a Khyber rifle.
Guys, there are so many stories today, so many good stories. Scarlett, can we go to the Mirror and this business of shoplifting around? Let's see the headline, Isabel, in front of the Mirror.
This shoplifting.
They're calling, look at that, the year of the shoplifter, they're saying.
I mean, this isn't shoplifting in the way that we think of it, as somebody going in and taking one or two items. You listen to the people who are running small shops, and people will go in there and they will just clear a shelf into a plastic bag, and the police do nothing. And what's so incredible is now that there's a movement that, I mean, John Lewis is part of, is they're paying literally
thousands and thousands of pounds for the police to do things. And you think, what are the police for? I mean, of course the police should be stopping shoplifting.
But you haven't got enough police officers to monitor this. And the thing is, of course, we have got this massive cost of living crisis. Surely, certainly for the bigger stores, it's on their watch. They have to employ private security guards about this.
And they always have. And
then what do you do? What do you do with the people you catch? That's the thing.
Yeah, but I mean, and you take it seriously because I mean, I've been listening to interviews with these women who run these small shops who say, well, of course it's organised crime. This isn't people who are desperate for money, you know, and getting food for their children, right? Or this is criminal gangs who are holding up shops. And what are the police for? And you say there aren't enough police, but why aren't there enough? Why were there ever police cuts, right? I mean, we know if your house gets burgled, forget it. If your bicycle gets taken, forget it. I mean, you know, in Lymington in Hampshire, they have set up their own police force because they've just given up on that.
Yeah, but the reason there were police cuts was because of austerity, and austerity was a direct reaction to the financial crash.
I think that the trouble with the police, and you know, I've been familiar with the police for 40 years since I started at the bar, and the police have always got a feeble excuse as to why they can't do things. And you can be sure that if there's some modish thing where, I don't know, some preacher is saying something stupid in a shopping centre, they'll descend on him, half a dozen, 10 more of them. But what they don't want to do is get involved in the sharp end of crime. Sharp end of crime is difficult for them, and someone's got to force them to actually be involved in the sharp end of crime. They've absented themselves from a lot of crimes on the street. And, I mean, when you say, was it 5% of burglaries get sorted out? I mean, this is a joke, isn't it?
Scarlett, not a day goes by almost without Tony Blair giving some advice, but it does seem as though Sir Keir Starmer seems to be open to the Blairite way of thinking. And today, Sir Tony is saying that you can't tax and spend your way out of what he calls this Tory mess.
Well, I mean, he does have a point that whoever wins the next election, I mean, the government is in a complete mess, and as soon as, if Labour wins, they'll open the books, and one does assume, to put it mildly, there will be no money.
But does it trouble you, Scarlett, that when Jeremy Corbyn fought the last election, you know, Labour's present leader was putting forward all of the policies that we now think are absolutely ludicrous about the EU, and now he appears to be Blair's little helper. I mean, where's the beef here? Where's the truth of it? Where's the reality?
Well, one of the things is actually Keir wanted a second referendum, right? So actually there isn't a problem about it. I mean, we all know that Keir was a Remainer, but you know, we are now where we are. We are out of the EU. We are not going to have a referendum. But he's always been pro-EU. And the good thing is that he wants to. I mean, if he wins, one of the first things he'll do is renegotiate a better deal, so that we don't have this hard Brexit where none of us.
How many people have said that and failed?
Actually, nobody's tried to get a better deal with the EU. I mean, all we now know that we know for a fact, because David Frost has said it, that when Boris went in to do the Northern Ireland Protocol, he expected it to fail. I mean, this was not a proper negotiation, right? So this is, but I think, I do think there is a real problem about where is the money going to come from to do anything when. No, they're not going to raise taxes, but they're not even going to change the tax system.
Hold that thought. Thank you, Scarlett. Thank you, David. For the moment, we will take a break. After that, we've got the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield, talking about the government's plan to support the NHS, and then more for the guys as to what is making the news this morning. Back after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, thanks for tuning in. Eamonn and Isabel here. Although apparently you're not tuned in on radio. We've got a bit of a problem on radio this morning.
On it.
We've got a man with a hammer sorting that out very, very shortly. Here's a reminder of the top stories on this Wednesday morning.
Both the government and Labour are refusing to commit to raising the state pension to match official overall earnings figures.
MP Tobias Ellwood fights to stay on as Defence Committee chairman after he appeared in a video that praised the Taliban in Afghanistan.
And North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un is in Russia for a summit with President Vladimir Putin, as reports suggest a possible arms trade deal could be on the cards.
Right, as we get into autumn and winter, things get colder, coughs and sneezes and diseases and whatever seem to get much worse. And then this variant of COVID, are we going to be struck with that again over the winter months? So the government's preparing the health service for the winter flu season.
Yes, let's speak to the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield. Good morning to you, Maria. We understand the Prime Minister is hosting this winter round table today. Tell us more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this year we're starting earlier than ever to get our winter preparedness underway. We know that every year that winter is a challenging time for the NHS and social care because people naturally get more unwell with respiratory illnesses, with flu. We've had COVID in recent years, but also staff get sick as well. So that puts additional pressure on our services. So we're putting in our plans earlier than ever before with bringing forward our vaccination programme. So this week vaccinations are starting in our care homes already. Next week they'll be open to the over 65s and vulnerable people, and then the extra capacity we're building both in our hospitals but also in social care, so we're able to cope with any additional pressure that comes.
People will be reassured to hear that you are trying, but people are dying on waiting lists. I mean, the Prime Minister said this is one of his 5 ambitions, to try and bring them down, and yet more people died on waiting lists last year than not.
Well, we're actually making good progress on our waiting list. So while the numbers, overall numbers, are still high, what matters to patients is how long they're waiting on those lists. And we've actually eliminated the 2-year wait on lists. We now, in the last year, virtually eliminated people waiting for 18 months or more. So now it's tackling the year-long waits. And so we are getting through those pretty rapidly in terms of shortening the length of time people are waiting, whether it's for operations, procedures, scans, tests. And, you know, COVID, where we had to shut down the health system to routine care, has not helped with that backlog. But the measures we're putting in means that people are waiting a shorter amount of time, and we want to get that down further.
Well, how are you going to get that down further? I mean, we appreciate all the problems with COVID and whatever. But if you don't settle with the doctors, there'll be more strikes and there'll be more waiting lists, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. How can you say to me you're getting the waiting lists down if the doctors continue to go on strike after strike?
Well, we're using a number of measures, and you are right, Eamonn, that the strikes are not helping. We know that, to date, the strike action by doctors has caused by, just under 1 million appointments to be missed, and that doesn't help us tackle our waiting list. And we've got further strike action to take. But we have been investing in our capacity building. We've got rapid diagnostic units around the country now. I've got one in my own constituency, just at the edge of Falmer, where we're seeing millions of tests being done outside of hospitals, so biopsy, scans, other procedures. So we are increasing our capacity, but it is true that if we didn't have the strike action, we would be drastically reducing those waiting lists further.
Yeah, so what does all that mean? So anybody at all can carry out a diagnostic or a test as long as they're not a doctor. I mean, we can talk about this for ages, and you can take whatever shortcuts you want. End of the long and the short of it is you've got to settle with the doctors, and it doesn't look as if it's going to remotely happen. It's inevitable. One day you will have to settle with the doctors. Why don't you just get on with it?
Well, we have put offers on the table. If you look at, for junior doctors, for example, we've offered 8 to 10%, depending on where a junior doctor is in their training. And that's comparable to the Scottish offer of 17% over 2 years, which the BMA have accepted. But unfortunately, they don't want to accept a similar deal in England. If you look with the consultants, not only have we offered 6%, which is just over £6,500 extra a year, but we've also dealt with the pension issue, which many of them felt were costing them money to come to work. So, and that cost the taxpayer money to resolve as well. So we have moved on a number of pay issues, both for junior doctors and consultants, but they are both stuck at the 35% pay demand. And realistically, that's not something that we as a government or the taxpayer can afford. And it's not fair on other public sector workers, whether they're police officers or teachers or nurses, in fact, because that is not a demand that we can do across the board. And if we give it to one, it wouldn't be fair on the other public sector workers.
I want to ask you about another issue that our audience really cares about, and that is, of course, pensions. The front of the Eye this morning saying that the triple lock's under threat after the election, but the Express are questioning whether actually there could be a bit of a fiddle before even the election. And this is because we had those wage figures out yesterday, which put wages growth above inflation. And we know that's been bolstered by these one-off payments to public sector workers. And is there a possibility that you might actually try and make a saving there, and 12 million pensioners will miss out on what could be a nice boon for them in a cost of living crisis?
Well, I'm slightly frustrated at the speculation every year about the triple lock. I mean, it was this government that brought in the triple lock because we understood the pressure that pensioners were facing. And every year we've kept the triple lock, and whether it's by wages or inflation or the 2.5%, whichever is higher, we have committed to that, and we delivered that last year when inflation was high. And we have said that the triple lock is safe, under this
tweak it after the pandemic.
We can't be clearer on that.
You have tweaked it in the past. It hasn't been untouched the whole time the Conservatives have been in power. So I'm just wondering, will there be another tweak, or can you rule that out this morning?
Well, the triple lock is safe under the Conservative government. And in addition to that, what we've done over the last couple of years is introduce extra winter fuel allowance for pensioners. So on average, the winter fuel allowance that pensioners get every year, we've added between £200 and £300, depending on whether you're a single individual or a couple. And we're doing that again this winter. And there have been additional funding announcements for pensioners during the cost of living crisis as well. So we have really put our money where our mouth is in supporting pensioners. And I can say to your viewers that the triple lock will be awarded this year, and the Conservatives will continue to deliver on the triple lock.
About spring next year, and I just want to get a guarantee from you that you won't be trying to use this loophole, which could bring it down to around 7.6%. It'd be a saving of £630 million for the government. I can understand why the Treasury might try and do that, but a lot of pensioners will be very worried about it.
Yeah, and I think the speculation doesn't help. If you look at our track record, not only did we introduce the triple lock, but we have delivered and kept the triple lock.
But will you keep it next year, next April?
That in the future. Well, I'm not going to comment on speculation.
Okay.
The triple lock will be kept next April. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Maria Caulfield, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us today. Appreciate that. Maria is the Under-Secretary of State at the Department of Health and Social Care. David Mellor, as a former Cabinet Minister, what do you think about the triple lock? And as Isabel was trying to imply there, there are ways of wheedling their way around this sort of sneaky changes and whatever. How important is that?
Let me remove all appropriate offensive words and simply say it's hopeless. It is not a basis to formulate policy. Policy towards the elderly should be based on the needs of the elderly. It shouldn't be based on some arbitrary figure based on what has been the increase in pay. And they've got to get rid of it or calm it down. Otherwise, of course, we will never see an end to the inflationary spiral. This gives a huge boost to the inflationary spiral. And, of course, you know, the whole thing about benefits is they're supposed to help people in real need. An awful lot of people who are pensioners, I'm not sure whether you're a pensioner, I sadly am. And I mean, I can claim many things about being a pensioner, but I'm not really in great need, you know?
Well, I think that's a really interesting point you make then. And Scarlett, you know, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation say there are 14 million people living in poverty in this country. 2 million of those are pensioners. 4 million of those are children. And yet, actually, they stand to lose out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing about children is we've got this ridiculous two-child rule, so that if you're unemployed or on benefits and you've got more than 2 children, the third, fourth or fifth, but, you know, say the third, gets nothing. So, of course, there are children in poverty. I mean, the problem with the triple lock is it was in the Tory manifesto for 2019, and they've got to stick to it. I mean, of course, it's crazy. I mean, David's completely right. I mean, there is a serious thing about pensioner poverty, about pensioners who are living on the old age pension. There are an awful lot of pensioners like David who have a lot of other income, and of course, David's right. It should be need.
Right.
I wouldn't want to exaggerate.
We know the truth.
My door.
Interested to see what she was
saying. Modestly comfortable.
Interested to see what she was saying about the doctors. I mean, it's quite obvious that they'll find ways to circumvent what the doctors do and make it seem more relevant and give it to technicians and whatever. But for them to talk about bringing the waiting lists down while they don't settle with the doctors, I just think is a nonsense.
Well, it's a complete nonsense. And what they should be doing is they should be meeting with the doctors. This is the problem, is they say, we will not meet with the doctors until you take your pay offer off the table. So the doctors... we've now got both sides. It's a macho game, isn't it?
But Scarlett, can I ask you, because you're a very experienced woman, and I mean that as a compliment, have you ever tried negotiating with the BMA?
They're obviously very difficult.
I spent 2 years.
They've always been very difficult.
BMA.
But
they ruthlessly exploit public affection for doctors and do it in the most absolutely cynical way.
But David,
and you start beginning to buy into a lot of BMA rubbish, and you will never, ever, ever be able to run a health service satisfactorily, because 70% of the money that goes into the health service goes into wages and incomes. Now,
yeah, but that doesn't make that a bad decision. I mean, these people...
Well, it would make it a better decision if it wasn't so much. Well, I mean, this is not a...
But they're not being paid what they deserve. And all this nonsense where they talk about
how do we know
35%. The pay deficit has been allowed to go down by 35%. Somebody made a big mistake there, so it's always going to seem unreasonable to try and get some sort of take on that. We will talk about that when we next come back, guys. But right now, we've got to go and have a look at what the weather will be doing over your head today.
Here's Annie Shuttleworth.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime, and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain arriving later, so we'll start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that, it'll be a milder night tonight than last night. Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast, it'll feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
A very good morning to you. It is fast approaching 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 13th of September. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
There you are, exactly 7 o'clock. Here's what's leading the news on this Wednesday morning.
Pensioners under threat. Treasury officials are discussing a one-off break from the pension triple lock that could save £1 billion by preventing a bumper 8.5% increase in the state pension next year.
A GB News exclusive this morning, Tobias Ellwood faces a vote of no confidence. He fights to stay on as Defence Committee chairman following his appearance in a video praising the Taliban government in Afghanistan.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un is currently in Russia holding talks with President Vladimir Putin. They're most likely to discuss a deal to supply arms for the war in Ukraine.
The latest updates on the weather front. Let's go back to Annie Shuttleworth.
It's feeling much more like autumn this morning out there, but will the sunshine last through the rest of the day? Find out more with me later in your detailed forecast in the next hour.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you very much indeed. Hello, good morning to everyone's favourite sports broadcaster, Paul Coyte.
Oh, bless you. I better talk about England. England outclassed Scotland in the 150th anniversary game last night. As far as tennis is concerned, Simona Halep has been banned for 4 years, and another ban, but in rugby, but this is just for high tackling, as Tom Curry's going to miss the next 2 games of the Rugby World Cup.
Too much abusive mental high tackling on Harry Maguire, I thought, last night.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
Do feel for Harry a bit, but we'll talk about that, shall we?
Yeah, so let's see what reaction we get on that as well, because you can get in touch with us. You can tweet at GB News, or you can email gbviews@gbnews.com. That's gbviews@gbnews.com.
OK, it is our top story this morning. Pensioners under threat as millions could receive a smaller than expected increase in their state pensions next year.
The Work and Pensions Secretary has refused to commit to raising the state pension to match official overall earnings. We hope you understand all of this. Will Labour do anything differently? Well, let's find out from Wes Streeting. Wes is the Shadow Health Secretary on all of that. Wes, the long and the short of it is, you know, the pensions triple lock will now become an election issue, one would have thought, particularly amongst older people. Where does Labour stand on this?
Well, we'll set that out in our manifesto, which will be fully costed, fully funded, so people know that we can keep our promises. And that's where my frustration is with where we are today, where it seems that the Conservatives are trying to take a a more flexible approach, shall we say, during this Parliament, having committed to the triple lock in their last manifesto. So my message to Rishi Sunak today is that if he's no longer committed to the triple lock, which he promised in the manifesto that he stood on at the last election, if he thinks it's no longer affordable, then he's got a responsibility to go back to the public and ask for a fresh mandate for a different policy, because Rishi Sunak wasn't elected by the British people. He wasn't even elected by Conservative Party members who rejected him in favour of Liz Truss, let's not forget. So if he wants to do something different in this Parliament, he's got to go back to the country and ask for a fresh mandate. And from our perspective, we are worried about the cost of living. We're worried about the impact it's having on pensioners specifically, particularly pensioners on lower incomes, as well as other families who are struggling. The challenge that we increasingly face as we think about our next manifesto is the economy and the public finances have been driven into such a state by the Conservatives. So we're being really careful about the promises and the pledges that we make, so that our manifesto is one that people can have absolute confidence in terms of Labour's ability to deliver. And you know, we've been saying this for months now. Hopefully the message is getting through. There are probably lots of things that we would like to do that won't be in our manifesto because we simply won't be able to afford them. But on this issue of the triple lock, we'll visit that again closer to the election.
OK, I want to, first of all, before we get on to the next topic with you, is discuss this breaking news that's just come through about the economy. In the last few moments, we've just heard it contracted by 0.5% in July. That's worse than what was expected. Your reaction to that?
It is deeply concerning because, and this is at the heart of Labour's argument about the economy for the next election, you know, why was it that the last Labour government was able to invest record levels in our public services and keeping people's pay up and making sure we didn't have things like national strikes in the NHS? It was because we had growth in the economy. And when you've got growth in the economy, it means that people are doing well. You don't have to raise people's taxes because there's more money flowing into the economy and more money coming through the Treasury to invest in good things or to reduce the burden of taxation on people. And the tragedy of where our country is today is that people are paying more and getting less because the economy has been driven into the ground by the Conservatives. And this is the central challenge, getting growth back into the economy. So I am concerned by this breaking news.
Now, your brief as the Shadow Health Secretary, we've just spoken to Maria Caulfield, Under Secretary of State at the Department of Health and Social Care. She was making, she was heralding what the Conservatives are doing as we hit winter to bring down waiting times within and waiting lists within the NHS. I put it to her, no matter what she's doing, no matter what tinkering she's doing without doctors, if there is not a settlement with doctors, you're doing nothing with waiting times. They're just going to get worse.
I'm afraid that is the bottom line. Rishi Sunak's got a meeting today in number 10 of NHS leaders, which as far as I'm concerned is just a photo op to look busy and look like he's doing something. The people who should be in number 10 today are the striking doctors, and Rishi Sunak should be knocking some heads together in his government with the doctors to get a deal over the line to avert these strikes next week and potentially into the winter and potentially even into the new year. I don't know what he's playing at. The Health Secretary hasn't met with the doctors since March. I think that is a total disgrace. What is the point of Rishi Sunak if in the face of one of our country's biggest crises in the NHS and the strikes that are now part of that crisis, he is not knocking heads together to resolve things? Somehow, after the mess we saw with Boris Johnson and then the absolute calamity of Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak seems to be trying to outdo them in a race as to who might be the most incompetent Prime Minister in British political history.
To be fair, we know that the British Medical Association have already objected to some of the reforms that you want to bring in relation to GP, so it might not be any different in terms of union strife under Labour. Just very quickly, a word on the advice on the front of the FT this morning from Tony Blair. He says Labour can't tax and spend its way out of this Tory mess. It seems to be that Tony Blair's very much giving advice to Sir Keir Starmer's top team these days.
always willing to take advice from a winner who's been there and done it in terms of serving as our Prime Minister. I think he's fundamentally right about this, though. I mean, one of the reasons we're making hard choices, and they are hard choices, it's not easy, we have got the highest burden of taxation in this country in 70 years. People on lower middle incomes, working people with normal jobs are the ones paying the price and bearing the brunt. We don't think that's right or fair, and it does mean that for an incoming Labour government, we can't just think, oh, well, we'll just tax some more and spend some more and that's going to solve the problems. It wouldn't be fair for taxpayers. I also don't think it'd be the right answer for our country, and that's why we've been talking about the need to reform the way our public services work, and crucially to reform the way our economy works so we get growth back in, so we can invest in our public services without hiking up taxes. Because and this is the link between the last point about the strikes, by the way, we didn't have national NHS strikes under the last Labour government because we were able to deliver better services for patients and better pay for staff without hiking up taxes to the extent we've seen under the Conservatives, because we had growth in the economy. So that is the central question and the central challenge for our country today, and one of many reasons why I think we desperately need a change of government and a general election as soon as possible to deliver it.
Wes Streeting, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Wes is the Shadow Health Secretary. Thank you. We're going to go to Olivia Utley now, our political correspondent, who's down there at Westminster in the heart of the action. And today the talk is around Tobias Ellwood, and he's head of the Select Defence Committee. The controversy, Olivia, actually, he spoke about the Taliban in Afghanistan in glowing terms. We're going to run the clip. We're going to show people what he talked about, and then we'll get your analysis as to the consequences after this.
Well, I'm here back in Helmand province in Afghanistan, courtesy of the Halo Trust, and all that's happened here since 9/11. This is a very different country indeed. It feels different now that the Taliban have returned to power.
Well, it may be hard to believe, but security has vastly improved. Corrupt.
I mean, this is an absolutely bizarre video from Tobias Ellwood. Just a couple of months ago, he went over to Afghanistan and published, as you say, this glowing review of the Taliban. Now, the fact that the Taliban has installed more solar panels is probably not very much comfort to the millions of girls and young women who are no longer able to access higher education because of the way that the Taliban is ruling in Afghanistan. His comments obviously went down like a lead balloon in Parliament. For 3 years, he has been the chairman of the Defence Select Committee. He's been a popular chairman. He's a generally popular man. He's known as an expert on defence, along with Bob Seeley. He's probably the most knowledgeable Conservative MP on the subject of Ukraine. And people thought that he'd stay in the job up until the next election. Now, though, it sounds as though his own committee might vote him out. Today, they're voting on the motion, "We have no confidence in our chairman." And it would only take 2 Conservative MPs to vote down Tobias Ellwood's chairmanship for him to lose his job. Now, these committees, they are actually very important. It might sound a bit like Westminster jargon, but select committees scrutinise the work of the government. And quite often, it's not a very long journey from chairman of a defence committee, which is a backbench job, to a frontbench job as a minister. If the Prime Minister can see that you're doing well scrutinising government legislation, then you might be brought in to help write that legislation. So Tobias Ellwood's career, which very much looked as though it was on the up, he was a stalwart of the sort of left of the Conservative Party, an influential figure in the party, now looks very much as though it's waning.
And I have to ask you, Olivia, about the breaking news this morning. A bit of a shock in terms of growth. The economy contracted 0.5% in July. I'm just reading that the Office for National Statistics are blaming this on what we were just talking about with Wes Streeting there, on the industrial action in July by healthcare workers and teachers, and also by the weather. But they point out that actually manufacturing fell back following its rebound from the effect of May's extra bank holiday, and a schedule of sporting events and increased theme park visits provided a slight boost. So it's a mixed picture for the Treasury this morning. How worried will they be by a 0.5% contraction?
I mean, mean, it is a bit of a mixed picture, and of course, as you say, there are quite a lot of sort of mitigating factors, but it still isn't great news for Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt. Rishi Sunak made those 5 promises back in January, and one of them was to get the economy growing. At the time, people thought that was a pretty easy pledge to keep because most of the time the UK economy is on the up. Since that, though, we've seen pretty much stagnant figures. The economy has grown by sort of 0.1%, or it's stayed at 0%. This is the first time it's actually fallen a little bit. And if we remain on the current trajectory, then it looks as though Rishi Sunak might not be able to fulfill his promise. Technically, what his promise to have managed to grow the economy in the previous year, by the end of this year, the economy has to be bigger than it was in the previous quarter. So this isn't great news for Rishi Sunak. That said, there is a bit of a silver lining for Jeremy Hunt. He has said that his top priority is to get inflation down. And although, of course, he doesn't really want a recession, if there is less money sort of washing around the economy, then hopefully that will start to bring inflation down, although it might take people's jobs with it.
Cheers, Olivia. Thank you very much indeed on that. We just break in across, Olivia, because this meeting between Kim Jong-un and President Putin, which is happening in where Russia borders with China, and the two leaders were pictured meeting. This is at the Russian Space Centre. I'm actually surprised they announced where it was.
It is. Yeah, they've been examining rockets apparently this morning.
Yeah, but they don't want a rocket landing on them. That might solve a few problems, but exactly what has been discussed. Let's go to Robert Fox, who's the defence editor at the Evening Standard with all of this. Well, what's in it? They're scratching each other's backs. What are they getting out of it, Robert?
Look, Eamonn, it doesn't look like Bruce Forsyth. Nice to see you, nice. But does it? Look at the look on Putin's face. I'd rather be anywhere than the Vostochny Cosmodrome at the moment. This was forced by necessity. He wants ammo, basically, from the North Koreans. He's desperate. They've been digging deep into old and, from what I understand from intelligence sources, is quite bad Soviet stock. And it's the medium-heavy artillery shells, the 155, of which North Korea has a plentiful supply. Now, what does North Korea want in return? Could be anything. Should be a lot of food for a near-starving population. Things are desperate there. But they're talking rockets and satellites, as you rightly say, because they boosted and boasted, the North Koreans, their satellite program, but their satellites haven't been doing too well.
So Jong-un, he'll have a lot of bits and pieces and bobs and rockets and goodness knows what, because he's always itching to have a war with someone and can't really get it off the ground. So a deal likely?
There will be a deal, of course. There'll be an agreement, and very little, I think, of what really counts will be announced in public. I think it really is support for the war in Ukraine with rockets, but above all, artillery, as I've just said. But it's very interesting that what Kim Jong-un wants is not only help with satellites, possibly even with his own nuclear program, which is really dangerous. And he also will want help with hypersonic missiles, which they're both interested in. But there are all kinds of very strange things being mentioned now, that China and possibly China, Russia and North Korea could have joint naval exercises quite imminently, as early as the spring. It shows that Russia has to keep desperate company. It's now North Korea. It has been Iran. Iran has been supplying copious medium-level, quite cheap drones, the Shaheeds, which nearly brought the power infrastructure in Ukraine absolutely to its knees just about a year ago. They're not so successful now. And again, of course, Iran will want help with its nuclear armament program. So it's pretty ominous. It's going to be very interesting what happens next week at the General Assembly of the United Nations, because here is a member of the Permanent Five. It's agreed to all these deals about restricting nuclear weapons, and yet it's playing this very dubious game. I think it does indicate how desperate the situation is in Ukraine. It's not going to Putin's plan, and we've had further news of what looks like quite a significant attack at the historic center and vital shipyard of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sebastopol, the old capital of Crimea.
Robert, I have to ask you, with your defence hat on, about the terrible situation in Libya. Expected to be possibly 10,000 people lost and what's been described as a tsunami-style dam burst. Witnesses describing apocalyptic scenes. And the reason we don't know these figures exactly yet is because of the chaos in this country 12 years on from the Gaddafi regime.
Look, Libya, ecologically, as a lot of North Africa, is extremely fragile. So this is awful. These things are on the cards not only in Libya, but Tunisia, and moving along the coast west. Libya is an absolute basket case. It is oil and gas rich. But they can't sell a lot of the oil for the very reason that you have stated. There are two competing elements that claim to be the government of the country, one in Tripoli in the west and the other in Benghazi. And they are locked in really what is an on-off guerrilla tribal war. And that means nothing can get in, nothing can get out. They haven't been able to sell the oil, but now it's desperate. They can't get aid in, but they can't even get clear information. And it looks as if the death toll in Libya is many times worse even than that terrible death toll that we've been hearing in the Moroccan earthquake.
It's like ghastly. Thank you, Robert. Really appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much indeed. Just the world, I mean, Libya now on top of Morocco, on top of what's happening in Hawaii.
Greece.
I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And you were saying, he was saying there that Libya is such a basket case of a country. There's no one government for the land since Gaddafi went. And just our hearts go out to people there, and Britain, of course, sending aid there as well. Look, on happier matters, do you know, today is Back British Farming Day.
All right.
Yeah. So the whole idea is, you don't know this yet, but we have been sent a hamper with British produce in it.
Who sent that?
The farmers, the National Farmers Union. Yeah, and there are apples in it, and there's chutney in it, and there's cheese, and there's various things there, whatever. So basically, they're saying today, there's so much fantastic food and drinks available right across Britain for the work that British farmers who work really, really hard. And we're going to be featuring this just before 9 o'clock, and then after 9 o'clock as well. We're down the farm in Essex. So why wouldn't you back what goes on in Britain in terms of your own farmers?
Union Jack logo you've got to look out for, isn't it, for British farmers? Produce.
Yes, and you can use, if you're doing social media today, hashtag Back British Farming Day. So the NFU are organising this. I know it's not the government that are organising this, and it just makes such sense. Support your own industries, support your own people. That's assuming we've got the workers on the farms to carry out a lot of this work. So thank you, National Farmers Union, for our little hamper today. Yeah.
We have a debate coming your way in just a moment. We'll be talking about vaping. What are the untold dangers? The government's reportedly poised to ban single-use vapes amid health and environmental concerns.
OK. Find out after the weather update. Annie Shuttleworth.
That warm feeling inside. From boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime, and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain rain arriving later, so it will start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere, though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight, then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that, it'll be a milder night tonight than last night. Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast, it'll feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 7:27. Time to go through the sports with Paul Coit.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well done. You predicted the result yesterday, didn't you?
I know, I'm good at that.
Very, very
With
good.
a bit of help from my friends.
Did you put any money on? No, Mr.
Maybe it's time to do the football pools, could be the answer for you. But anyway, England won 3-1.
They still do the football pools?
I think they still do that. You don't see the people, though, they used to have to get the photograph with the black bar over their eyes,
Yeah.
so you couldn't recognise them.
Did you ever do spot the ball?
I did do spot the ball.
I always enjoyed spot the ball.
But I never won, though.
Did you ever do
Too many
spot
crosses.
the ball?
So you get the picture.
So you get a picture and they erase out the ball. Of a football match, and you've got to guess where the ball
it's like
is.
pin the tail on the donkey football.
It's exactly
style.
what it is.
Yes. You put an X on. That's quite
But it's pretty much like pin the tail on the donkey with no donkey. That's how tricky it is.
Well,
But anyway.
poor Harry Maguire's been billed as the donkey last night. I really feel sorry for him. An own goal in that 3-1 England win. And this guy's under a lot of pressure, and I think Southgate will be under a lot of pressure now whether to select him if England get through to the Euro finals.
I think so. I think you're on the money. I mean, he can't catch a break, can he? Poor Harry Maguire. We're still talking about very, very expensive, a very rich footballer, but money doesn't really come into it. This is always very easy for people to say, oh, you know what, he earns so much money, he does this. But when you have the amount of crowd on your back and you know you've got to go out and perform and you know that everybody's on you. Scottish fans, surprise, surprise. I mean, they were giving him a tough time when he came on. But then he goes and scores an own goal, sticks his foot out. Probably shouldn't have happened anyway, but is this down to the fact that he's not getting enough play at the moment?
It's certainly bad luck anyway.
It is bad luck. But anyway, I thought England were very good yesterday.
And what about Jude Bellingham? Did you think he shone?
I thought Jude Bellingham was excellent. I think he's proving to be one of the best footballers in the world. He's 20 years old. 20,
and he's got the whole PR side of it right. He has got great association with the German supporters.
Yeah. But now Real Madrid.
And talent.
It's at Real Madrid. And the thing is, he's a smart kid. I mean, you can see how mature he's going to be a star, and well, he is already. And should things stay on the straight and narrow, which we know what football's like in sport, every now and again someone manages to fall off somewhere, he should be fine. And I think he's a terrific player.
Speaking of keep falling off the straight and narrow, should we have a quick word about Simona Halep?
Yes.
Who, people will know from the tennis world, two Grand Slam winner.
Yeah, 2019 Wimbledon.
She's disgraced now.
Yeah, and it's a drugs ban. I mean, there seems to be too many of these going on at the moment. And in
it's a
tennis,
big ban, isn't it? 4 years.
It really is. And the thing is, they get tested, and you think, really, why are you doing this? Well, we know why. It's called roxadustat. It is always the thing that comes out by saying, well, it's in supplements I was taking, this is the reason, and I didn't know it was involved. But then again, it's taken a year for the actual preliminary hearing to go through. And decided there's going to be a 4-year ban.
It's in a supplement, or her excuse was that it was something.
It was in a supplement. I didn't know it was in the supplement, but the amount that was found was way and above, and it's decided 4-year ban. She's going to appeal it, which of course they always do. Going to go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Yeah. But I think it'll be very, very fortunate of her if she manages to get away with it. But it shouldn't be happening. But
You're not a smoker, Paul, are you?
I'm not a smoker, no.
But would you be tempted to vape?
You know what? I wouldn't be tempted to vape. The main thing is everywhere I walk around the streets, they're all laying around on the floor.
Funny you should
Kids
say.
at school.
Even if it was bubblegum flavour or...
Yeah, that was it. It used to be bubblegum in the days, used to be vapes, but no,
well,
not for me.
That's what we're going to talk about now. Thank you very much indeed, because the government is reportedly poised to ban what Paul's talking about, these single-use vapes.
Yes, this is after a series of calls from councils, leading paediatricians and public waste campaigners to make selling the disposable devices illegal on health and environmental grounds.
Well, the government is concerned that the products are being overwhelmingly pitched at kids, though, who then become addicted or move on to cigarettes or whatever. So should vaping be banned? That's basically what we're saying.
Well, joining us to discuss this morning is Professor Sheriff Sultan from the International Society for Vascular Surgery, who, as you might expect, thinks that vaping should be banned.
And Marina Murphy, who joins us here in the studio from the
nicotine delivery systems, or alternative nicotine delivery systems.
So basically, you would be pro-vaping, Marina, and you see banning as not the solution. How can we get round this? Where is the problem, and why do you think vaping is not necessarily a harmful thing?
Well,
E-cigarettes are designed for smokers, so designed to help smokers stop smoking, and I think it's very important for them to have the e-cigarette that
But
they
if
want
they're
to use
ending
available.
up in the hands of kids, we've got a problem straight away.
Yes, and they shouldn't end up in the hands of kids because they're not designed for children. They're adult products, they're age-gated, and nobody should be selling them to children. But I don't think the solution to youth access is to take an adult product out of the hands of the adults who want or need to use them.
But they're not safe. I mean, a lot of people think that these are perfectly safe alternatives to cigarettes. But Professor Sheriff Sultan, you're saying that one vape is equivalent to 50 cigarettes?
Yeah, exactly. So if you have 2 or 3 mils in a cartridge, this is equivalent to almost about 60 cigarettes of combustion cigarette. So the whole idea that we're going to say that it's a reduced harm using e-cigarette doesn't make any sense at all. Harm-free have to be, not reduced harm. As if you're saying that a heart attack is less severe than a cancer. We cannot play with words like this. And we have to understand fully that electric cigarette causes combustion of some sort of a liquid that goes in, and it contains formaldehyde. It's 15-fold increase in risk of cancer over 5 years. And moreover than that, the byproducts that some of them we are not aware of, like acetylaldehyde, acrolein, and diacetyl, all of them causing problems, including popcorn lung, which is impossible to treat.
Okay,
So
well, the long and the short, Marina, is the professor is saying that vaping is the youth catastrophe of the century. What is going wrong then?
Well, I want to address a few points that the professor has just made. An e-cigarette in this country has 2 mils of 20 milligrams tops nicotine, so that's 40 milligrams tops. A packet of 20 cigarettes can have up to 200 milligrams of nicotine. And the issue with cigarettes is not the nicotine. The nicotine is not causing the problem. It doesn't cause cancer. I mean, you can look at Cancer Research UK's website and it'll tell you that. You don't have to listen to me, but they will tell you it's not the nicotine, it's the toxicants in the smoke that causes all the problems. And e-cigarettes don't burn anything. There's no combustion. And there is no evidence at all that e-cigarettes cause cancer.
What about the environmental consequences as well? All these plastic depositories left all over the place and ending up in the water and things. There must be, even if you accept that you still keep selling them, there must be a different way of marketing or packaging them.
Well, disposable e-cigarettes are actually very recyclable, and we've tested our own e-cigarettes. Our e-cigarette in our company is made from cardboard, and it's very recyclable. I think the issue is that a lot of consumers don't understand that these products are recyclable, and they literally think of them as disposable and just dispose of them and throw them away. So that's one issue. I think consumers aren't necessarily aware of how recyclable these products are, and also the infrastructure isn't there necessarily to facilitate them, to help them to do it easily.
I just think we ought to give a final thought to the professor in all of this. People at home, if they have to make up their minds, just give us the case of, why you're saying this. You don't have any vested interest in these vapes at all. Presumably the ANDS does have a vested interest in that. What's your summary to all of this?
Isabel, you have already nailed the head. So there's conflict of interest. And a lot of publication coming in from guys like myself shows there is huge amount of dangers from vaping, and I published that extensively. I have patients lost their legs, I have patients lost their kidneys, I have patients had clots in the lung because they're vaping. So I'm taking about real world experience. Now the conflict of interest coming in that when we assess it, 95% of people who have no conflict of interest have shown harm from vaping. However, 8% of people working for the industry have shown harm. That's a 66-fold increase of bad research and bad medicine. So what I'm saying in here that vaping is dangerous, they're affecting the currency of our future with STIOS, it have to be banned. Look what Australia have done. You are not allowed to get vaping except by a doctor prescription. Look at what New Zealand have done. They have banned anybody. post 2001 born, not allowed to buy any smoking, whatever it is. So the complacency of the government trying to say, oh, it's recirculation of it and the green part
Okay,
of it is not,
Professor,
it's the
we get
health
that.
of the
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you, Professor Sheriff Sultan and Marina Murphy from Senior Director, Scientific and Medical Affairs at ANDS. Thank you both very much indeed.
Stay with us. You're watching GB News, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Right, what's making the news today? David Miller and Scarlett Maguire will tell us. And Scarlett, we've got pictures, we're getting live pictures coming in from Russia on the eastern border with China, between President Putin and the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. What do you want to say about this? I just want to say, it obviously took him like 3 weeks to get there. His train goes at 37 miles an hour. You could walk faster. It's amazing.
Well, it's amazing he took a train instead of...
But it's
I mean,
an armoured
it's-
train, so
Yes,
it'll
but it is-
withstand almost
That's why it
anything.
goes at 37 miles. It's so heavy, isn't it? That...
It's a lovely train ride for Putin, the Trans-Siberian from Moscow to Vladivostok.
Yes, but
or whatever
you
it's called.
wonder that he's
on
got
a
enough
jaunt.
time. I mean, but here you have two world leaders who are just both sort of sitting around looking.
Well, Putin's trying to get some cash to fund his war machine.
He's trying to get the
Weapons.
war machine, isn't he? I mean, it is terrifying because Kim Jong-un is frightening, actually. I mean, he has no thoughts, and Putin is desperate. He's absolutely desperate.
See, that's
for
the
anything.
point, what has just been said. I mean, Putin, he was a powerful world leader, and now he's reduced to having to try and do squalid little deals with the leader of a renegade nation. But that doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to do a great deal of damage to the rest of the world.
I'm no body language expert, but I'm reading some disdain from Putin there. And if you're listening on the radio, you might not be able to see, but there's zero eye contact from Putin towards this person he's trying to get some weapons from. I think he thinks it's beneath him. But as you say,
Well, it is beneath him.
It's a coalition of the desperate.
I know, and obviously, if you're Kim, it's great. There you are, Russian leader. He's had Trump, and now he's got Putin. It's fantastic, and Putin realises that this is terrible. I mean, absolutely. What are world leaders doing? Going to tin pot dictators to beg.
The worrying thing, though, is that with North Korea, they need additional help to make some of their nuclear weaponry fully operational. Now, what is Russia doing as a permanent member of the Security Council of the UN for its own narrow interest, trading, it would appear, or being willing, or it is rumoured being willing, to trade things that should not be traded, let alone by a permanent member of the Security Council, traded to a dangerous lunatic like Kim.
Yeah.
It's really it is quite worrying, actually. You don't have to think about it too much.
I know.
Worried about it.
Let's just change the tone and something that we should be rejoicing about as opposed to worrying about. And Isabel came across this on social media last night.
What's one?
Your cow.
Oh, my cow!
Cow down the hole. Yes.
There's a couple of
You
things
think
I came
about
across
cows
on social
late
media
at
last
night.
night.
Well, we have a cow on the programme. Which is called
very
Isabel.
rude. I think they're very nice ladies.
they're very nice.
Don't comment.
It lives in Northern Ireland.
Go.
Even watch it.
And it was named after her. It was named after her.
Right. A wonderful beast with beautiful, large brown eyes. I'm sure.
Well, it wasn't its eyes that was the main attraction. But anyway, but would you see this? We're going to show you a tiny hole and a big cow.
Yeah, you see, sinkholes are things we traditionally think of, I think of anyway, in the States. But this one is in County Durham. And look at those legs sticking out. That's a cow stuck down a sinkhole. Now, just to reassure you, that cow is alive and is fine and well by the end of all of this. But gosh, what an absolute effort they had to go to get this cow out of the ground.
I'm getting my back stretched at the minute. And it sort of feels a bit like that.
They should work on you.
Well, it's working on me. Okay. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that! But you see, you're worried about this, but the cow's okay, isn't it, Isabel?
The cow's fine, and this is National Farmers Week, isn't it? And we're talking about
we're talking about
farming.
Back British Farming Day.
And this is the sort of stuff they have to deal with.
I know, but you see, you're saying it's about the size of a manhole cover.
Yeah.
And the cow obviously was over nibbling or whatever, and
the ground just gave way. You just
the ground gave way.
Ground,
Oh, it was a shock for the cow.
I thought it fell down that hole. But anyway, when the video continues, I'm not sure we've got the full video there, but actually, that looks awful. It looks like a carcass, a dead body there. But the cow gets up, walks away, and do you know the loveliest thing at the end of all of this? The other little cows come over. And they kiss it.
Have a little nuzzle.
They have a little lick and a nuzzle, and they do,
and
they kiss it, and it's all lovely. I see you're moved by that, David.
I'm thinking, what am I doing in this lunatic asylum?
Sorry. We now
say that
review
Putin
videos,
has fallen
David.
on hard
Well,
times.
you think
I've fallen on hard times. I used to be a serious person once.
You think that's bad? Scarlett's gone to the Evening Standard, and these are also things that I use.
What, your cellulite trousers?
No, they take down swelling in your leg. Athletes use these.
Right.
as well. But so tell me about this is as recommended by Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston, later friends, very, very amazing woman, actually. Who, I mean, I think she's very funny, but more importantly for this is she's absolutely beautiful, and she's not young anymore and spends a lot of time and energy.
Speak for yourself.
Yes. She's probably older than Isabel.
Have we shown the legs yet,
and
please?
Then, yes, and has he puts her legs into these incredible trousers that are supposed to help you slim and stop cellulite. Then? Well, I mean, probably more than you and I are prepared to pay. And also, how long do you have to be in them? And how seriously? I mean, I do read a lot in the Daily Mail about these sort of incredible women, sort of in their 50s and 60s, who look amazing. And you just think, how much effort do you have to put in? I mean, is your whole life spent trying to... I can understand
I think yes.
Yes.
I think yes.
Yes.
And the question is,
So
can
they
you use them on your
squeeze
face?
I mean, they put lots of air in and they compress them.
Yes.
I think this sounds a bit saucy to me.
Well, that's been swiftly on.
Now, moving swiftly on, we're going to go to prison, yeah?
Oh, you want to go to prison? Okay, yeah.
So we've got the Princess of Wales yesterday, and again, she was in seeing a cause close to your heart about the rehabilitation
she was
prisoners.
in prison. Yeah, absolutely. And this is people particularly who end up in prison because of addiction, which can often be linked to, well, frankly, just being dealt a bad hand in life and ending up addicted to whatever it might be. So helping them to make the right decisions. And our Cameron Walker has been following her story.
Perhaps used to spending time in palaces rather than prisons, the Princess of Wales seems relaxed as she shined a light on a cause she's championed for more than 10 years. Inmates at HMP Highdown in Surrey have suffered with addiction problems, but the Category C men's prison aims to help break the cycle of crime and substance abuse. And Princess Catherine's patronage, the Forward Trust, helps the prisoners move on with their lives. Mike Trace is the charity's chief exec.
If somebody's ended up with a lifestyle of drug addiction in prison, things have gone pretty wrong. You know, they've been struggling with emotional problems or trauma, a lot of trauma in people's backgrounds and violence. So what we're trying to do is give them the belief in themselves that they can live a different type of life.
Tackling a trampoline injury, the princess went through airport-style security before entering the prison, something inmates' families have to do on a regular basis. HMP Highdown is trying to make the experience less stressful, particularly for children. So Penny, a black Labrador, calmly reacted when she found a banned substance planted for the Princess of Wales to see. Her Royal Highness said, "It's very calm and controlled and not intimidating." The royal visit came ahead of Addiction Awareness Week in October, which aims to highlight different people in society affected by it. This year's theme is Everybody Knows Somebody, and Princess Catherine sat down with both serving and former inmates who had suffered from addiction. The Forward Trust helps them to recover, however severe their illness is.
We want to show her unvarnished what things are like out there. And she is a natural. She comes to these places, she talks to everybody, talks to the staff who work here and run the prisons, talks to the therapists who try and work with the prisoners, and talks to the prisoners themselves.
The role you're playing is really critical.
The princess believes recovery from addiction is possible. And scientific research suggests a bad start in life can lead to poor mental health and addiction. The Shaping Us campaign aims to raise awareness of this, a lifelong project for the Princess of Wales. Cameron Walker, GB News, Surrey.
Well, from the Princess of Wales to the Duchess of Sussex. She's touched down in Dusseldorf, hasn't she, David? Your favourite person?
Well, allegedly she has, and they've let her in. Well, there you go. And she's pictured beaming as she arrives in Dusseldorf before going to a private event with Prince Harry and families of UK team tonight. I mean, I suppose it does no harm, does it?
Well, I think it shows a united front, doesn't it? Because there were lots of questions about why she wasn't there for the whole thing, because she's arrived late, and last year, of course, she was there for the whole thing.
But you feel it's a sad half-life that she has, because she always thought that she could drift into the royal family and become the sort of new Princess Diana, and all she would have to do was doll herself up and go and smile at the cameras, failing to realise that, you know, I mean, in my life in politics, you come across a lot of royals, and they work very hard doing, frankly, deadly dull things.
And she obviously found them too dull. But I mean, what's so interesting is they now, the newspapers compare the Catherine locks to the Meghan hair and say, oh, look, you know, Catherine. And you just think, oh, just leave it out. Just leave it out. And, you know, my view about Meghan is, and Harry, is instead of going for them, just ignore them. I mean, I don't quite understand why we have to have Meghan, you know, arriving in Dusseldorf. I mean, we know where Meghan and Harry are every single day.
Well, I think it's interesting because so far he's been on his own. And look, whether you like or loathe Prince Harry, the Invictus Games is a great thing. It's one of the things that we
he does it very well.
Yes, it was very good. That in itself
it's a
needs
good
coverage. Yeah.
But you were talking about comparing. No one could compare with Catherine's hair. Let's have a look. It's this Charles II look. I mean, it's voluminous. It's wonderful, isn't it?
I mean, it really is something to behold, yeah, and it's all hers,
She hasn't got
think.
extensions.
No, I don't think so. She's far too posh for that.
I thought that was a picture of you, Isabel.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh.
I think, she's very lucky. She's got wonderful hair, and probably doesn't have to have it sort of done every single day, which completely wrecks it.
I'm sure you and I, if we left it long enough, we've got the kind of hair, we could grow it down.
You've hair all over you, you have.
Eyebrows, I noticed
How do
earlier.
you know? You don't know. But I tell you, I just think maybe it should become more bushy. I should become more Charles.
I think so too. I think you should go for the mermaid wave.
I would love to have had the Mel Gibson hair in Braveheart. That's what I would have liked.
That was fake.
Let's see if you're brave enough for the weather. Annie Shuttleworth, let's go to her.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime, and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain arriving later, so it will start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere, though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight, then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that, it'll be a milder night tonight than last night. Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast, it will feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, stay with us at 8 o'clock. We're talking more about the triple lock. Is it under threat? Lots of you have been getting in touch. Colin has said, get real. It's going to be 8.2% rise on less than £10,000. Pensioners are suffering under inflation.
Yeah. And then, again, we get back to this point. Leanne, no, it's Phil on pensions. He says, we could take it off the international aid budget and give it to the pensioners, or am I being daft? I think it'll be a popular move to do that. But anyway, we're going to be discussing that, a one-off break from pensions and the triple lock. What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello. Good morning. The time is 8 o'clock exactly. This is Isabel Webster. I'm Eamonn Holmes. It is a Wednesday, the 13th of September, and you are watching Breakfast and listening to it on GB News.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Millions of pensioners are set to receive a lower than expected state pension next year as the government refuses to commit to raising the state pension to match official overall earnings figures.
A GB News exclusive for you. We have details of why Tobias Ellwood will be fighting to stay on as Defence Committee Chairman. Our political correspondent Olivia Otley will bring you the latest from Westminster.
Yes, speculation is circling in Westminster today that Rishi Sunak is going to back down on his huge commitments to pensioners. And meanwhile, a top Tory is fighting for his political life. I'll bring you this and more shortly after 8 o'clock.
And in the next few moments, we'll be hearing from the Cabinet Minister, Penny Mordaunt, who has unveiled plans for 3 multi-purpose aid ships, which will be hoisting the flag for Britain around the world.
And we'll also be bringing you the latest weather updates today with Annie Shuttleworth.
It's feeling much more like autumn this morning out there, but will the sunshine last through the rest of the day? Find out more with me later in your detailed forecast in the next hour.
find out what happened sports-wise, or what is happening sport-wise. Paul Coit.
Well, England outclassed Scotland last night at Hampden. I don't think any Scottish fans would disagree with that. 2019 Wimbledon champion has been banned for drugs, and I'll be like Michael Rodd on Tomorrow's World when I explain why the rugby balls at the Rugby World Cup are flying so far.
What, are they, like, greasing them like pigs?
I can't tell you. I will tell you later.
Okay.
I can't give anything away.
Okay, be like that then.
I will,
That's
sorry.
fine. Do you know why rugby balls fly faster nowadays?
Probably all that kicking.
But all balls do.
Stop
Golf
moaning
balls
about the
do.
kicking.
It's so boring.
Leave the kicking. Kicking's okay, as long as we win.
Football.
But what balls don't go faster? Golf balls go faster with
That's the fastest moving ball, by the way, is a golf ball.
Is that right?
Yeah, 200 miles an hour.
Anything with cricket balls to report?
Cricket balls also fast. I actually
Tennis
did look.
balls.
But the rugby ball, I'll give you a clue, it's to do with the weather. It's because of the heat. Flying through the air.
There you
Oh, right. Your theories, very welcome. GBViews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBnews. OK, here's our top story this morning. If you're a pensioner, this will be of great interest to you. If you're not a pensioner, you will be one day, and it still will be of great interest to you. But whether you understand it or not is very difficult, because it's about a triple lock and your best options. So this triple lock, stop me when you're losing me, is under threat, because millions of people could get a smaller than expected increase in their state pension next year.
This is if the government decide to tinker around the edges. Well, the Pension Secretary has refused to commit to raising the state pension to match those official overall earnings figures. Let's speak to our political correspondent Olivia Utley about all this. I mean, Mel Stride may have refused to, but this morning we spoke to Maria Caulfield and she was perfectly clear. She said, absolutely, under a Conservative government, we will commit and remain with the triple lock.
Well, yes, we're hearing pretty mixed messages from Conservatives this morning. Maria Caulfield saying she's frustrated that there's even speculation about it. So what's brought this story to the attention of Westminster is that it looks as though Conservatives are trying to find a little loophole in the state pension triple lock. Now, the state pension triple lock is a promise in the Conservative manifesto that means every year the state pension must be raised by inflation, average earnings, or 2.5%, whichever is the highest. Now, we know that inflation is very high this year, but of course, actually, wages are even higher. Wages have risen by 8.5%. So what we were expecting is for the government to put pensions up by 8.5%. The way that the government traditionally calculates wages, which is a sort of difficult term to quantify, is salaries plus bonuses. So bonuses that are given both in the public sector. For example, this year when there have been strikes, the government has given sort of one-off payments to nurses, hospital workers, etc. And private sector bonuses, which can be pretty big in the case of banking. So if you calculate wages as salaries plus bonuses, it comes to 8.5%. If you calculate it by salaries alone and leave out bonuses from the equation, then it's only 7.6%. Now, if the government could raise it by just 7.6%, that would save them £630 million. But it would leave pensioners worse off. On average, a pensioner would receive £74 less a year than they would have done under the old formula. It seems at the moment as though the Tories are basically trying to calculate whether it's electorally possible for them to give pensioners a little bit less next year, or whether they would lose the grey vote, as it's not particularly respectfully known. Pensioners tend to turn out for elections in very big numbers, and the Conservatives really don't want to annoy them in the run-up to an election next year. So it seems as though Conservatives are trying to decide what to do about this, and that's why we're getting mixed messages from Conservative ministers.
Speaking of mixed messages, Tobias Ellwood went a little bit off script as well, didn't he, on his recent trip to Afghanistan, seeming to sort of extol the virtues of the Taliban. His chairmanship of the powerful Defence Select Committee is up for grabs now, it looks like. Do you think he will survive this vote of no confidence today?
It looks a little bit dicey for Tobias Ellwood. He's been a very popular chairman of the Defence Committee for the last 3 years. He's seen as a sort of stalwart of the left of the Conservative Party, and he came under great acclaim a few years ago when he tried to resuscitate PC Keith Palmer when he was attacked in Westminster by a terrorist. So normally he's a really well-respected figure in the Conservative Party, but the comments he made about the Taliban, saying that Afghanistan is a country transformed since the Taliban took over, were very, very off-colour. And his colleagues in the Defence Committee are now voting on his political future. They're voting today on a motion, "We have no confidence in our chairman." It would only take 2 Conservative MPs, these select committees are made up of a mixture of MPs, take 2 Conservative MPs to vote against Tobias Ellwood for him to lose his position. People have thought so far that Tobias Ellwood is a man on the up. It was thought that he could well have another ministerial career ahead of him, but it seems that could all be behind him now. His fate will be decided by the end of today.
Very, very much indeed. Do you know, we got a lot of reaction to that vaping debate we did half an hour ago. Duncan says, "I can't believe we're discussing if vapes are a good idea for kids or adults. Vaporised superheated oil and chemicals being smoked directly into your lungs doesn't sound like a good idea."
I was a smoker for 20 years and switched to vaping 5 years ago. I feel healthier, have more energy and no longer have the smoker's cough. This is Gary. I also smell much nicer too, he adds.
We'll take
yes, but
your
would you
word
feel
for it, Gary.
even better if you didn't vape? Who knows?
Who knows, yes. Alison, if the government's going to ban vapes, how about stepping in and banning ultra-processed food as well? Very good point, Alison, with that one.
And the same argument being made about single-use plastics. Yes, ban them, but why haven't we done anything about the millions and billions of COVID tests, disposable gloves, the masks that all have been sent to landfill?
We'll get a load of this
environmental disaster.
Carol says, "Love watching you two on early mornings.
Oh, Carol.
You make me smile." No, but the thing is, we're not here to make people smile. We're not here.
Laugh?
We're
Bit of laughter?
No, we're supposed to be deadly serious.
With a little bit of humour.
The trouble is, we have to be as boring as the rest of them and all the other channels.
Well, we have to do the news, don't we? Yeah.
That's why people are watching us, though. Yeah. Not them. I'm just looking at... See, there's what I tell you. The Harvard scientist who wants to believe we're not alone, aliens. Do you know in Peru or something yesterday, they took out 3 alien coffins in a courtroom, an inquiry, and showed the aliens, which were sort of... What happens when you turn to stone? You calcified or... Yeah, well, anyway.
Well, I just take from that, which is we take 2 different things from that headline. The Harvard scientist who wants to believe. They want to have a fantasy about it, whereas you just hear Harvard scientist believes in aliens.
There's Penny Mordaunt, and she's got a big boat in front of her there, and she is unveiling... Look at that big toy boat there. She's unveiling plans today for 3 big boats, real big boats, new multi-purpose ships. And we're not exactly sure what these does, although we've got a report now. Aid. So they're like sort of international rescue, like Thunderbirds or something.
Libya or Morocco or to Greece, wherever these big disasters have been taking place.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that. OK.
Well, the ships are to be built here in the UK, in our shipyards, and will help our efforts to alleviate disaster relief, engage in research, ocean cleanups and combat illegal migration.
OK, let's have a look at this report.
Penny Mordaunt, why do we need 3 maritime aid ships?
Well, I looked at what the government alone uses its maritime assets for, and it's a huge range of tasks. We do humanitarian and disaster relief, we deliver freight and passengers, we've used vessels for migration operations, we quite often use aircraft carriers for trade exhibitions.
All Royal Navy.
Yes, and expensive ships to operate. So a few years ago, I mapped all of the unmet need that was out there. And it was at the time when Chris Grayling at the Department for Transport was trying to find some ferries as well. And I looked at actually what would be the most cost-effective way of running it. And over the years, this project has developed. And the concept are ships that are run privately and they're built using private finance, but they have low operating costs so that different organisations, whether it's the government or whether it's a particular business or sector that wants to run a trade expo, or it's a fantastic charity that wants to provide aid and assistance, they can charter these vessels. But the other nifty thing is that they are training platforms, so they also generate an additional income. And they are going to be 50% manned by apprentices. And that helps not just us, but Commonwealth merchant navies and others, because we have a shortage of sea time for merchant mariners. So this fits a training need as well.
They're built in UK shipyards, crewed by Brits or by apprentices maybe, or is it the Navy? Or?
So the idea is that we could provide training to Commonwealth nations in particular. The partner I'm working with, Britannia Maritime Aid, has a background in humanitarian relief, but I'm also working with partners who do training. And in fact, one of the proposals is we have a simulator, a bridge simulator on the vessel as well. So that is meeting a clear need. It will generate income. We're particularly focused on the Commonwealth, and the reason why we want 3 ships is that eventually we can operate those 3 and we can have 1 per ocean, which will enable us to cover about 90% of the Commonwealth.
It's about reconnecting maybe Brits to the sea. We are an island nation, aren't we?
We are a maritime nation, and if we want to remain a maritime nation, it's in our interests we do. 90% of everything you've eaten or touched today has come here by sea. We need to be investing in our merchant navy, and we need to be providing our mariners and other nations with sea time. It's a huge that education is a huge export in itself. And you're right, this is also it's about global Britain, but it's also about levelling up. One of the major shipyards described it as the missing seed in the UK shipbuilding strategy. It's providing that steady work and enabling that investment.
The first one is £150 million. The cost of taxpayers, how much?
Well, we're not asking for government to step up the cash for that. Government can help us in other ways. We've asked for some help just finalising our planning on this. There'll have been a huge amount of work that was done on things like the National Flagship Project. We want to make use of that, and we want to ensure we're doing things in the smartest way. So government can help us with that insight and advice. There's all sorts of things they offer the shipbuilding sector in terms of guarantees and things like that. But we think that if the government will say that it will call on these ships if it needs maritime assets, that will help us raise finance.
So you raise money privately?
Raising money privately to do this, and we would establish a ship operating company that would be running this. It's not a civil servant that's going to be running this. They'll be very pleased to hear. But I think this is what we should be doing. It's increasing opportunities for UK businesses and the incredible humanitarian charities that we have in this country.
You mentioned the National Flagship Project, Boris Johnson's idea to maybe as seen as a replacement for HMY Britannia, decommissioned by Labour's government in 1997. Is it a replacement in some way for Britannia?
I think the spirit of Britannia lives on in these and other ships. I mean, I was brought up in Portsmouth. Britannia was often there. She was the most glamorous thing I'd ever seen in my life. And she really, people have an affection for her because she really was brand Britain. And she went around the world and she said a lot about our nation, and events were hosted on there. This ship lives, it's going to continue that spirit, but it's modern. It's doing ocean cleanup. It's doing humanitarian disaster relief. It's capacity building in other nations. You can imagine the kind of trade expos we could have on these vessels. So that's what this is doing. It's not another Britannia. Britannia was iconic and unique. This is about modern Britain and our role in the world.
But they are unashamedly decorated by the Union Jack and those colours.
Absolutely.
I mean,
because we're the prototype navy. People copy what we do. They copy our uniforms. We are known as being a maritime nation, the preeminent maritime nation.
Is there nervousness, do you think, about patriotism? Maybe in people who seem unsure about it, about trying to project this kind of soft power?
No, I don't think that there should be. I'm no doubt people will be snippy about this. They'll try and pretend that the UK taxpayer is paying for it. It's not. But I think I would say to those people is just look in your own communities and think about what makes you proud. It's the volunteers, it's St John's Ambulance, it's the incredible environmental organisations that are doing so much around the world. This is what we do as a nation, and we should be really proud of that. And it's beyond politics. It's not about Conservative or Labour, it's about who we are as a nation. And if we want to provide more opportunities for organisations to do that and to get a good education, to support the hospitality sector, to support the maritime sector, to support merchant navies, we should be doing that. This is a really great project to enable that to fly.
Penny Mordaunt, thank you.
Thank you.
It would be nice to see a picture of the boats in there, but they're rather unusual. I think Merchant Navy rather than Royal Navy, but you can see the big Union Jack and things on it. But you can't really see much on the newspaper there. But yeah, but it seems to be a very good idea.
Yeah, jobs. It's great. You are tuned into GB News Breakfast. We're going to bring you up to date now with the latest stories.
Libya has been hit with extreme flooding. 2,500 people are believed to have been killed so far. Rescue teams struggling to retrieve victims who have been swept out into the sea. That's because the flood waters were tsunami-like. Approximately 10,000 people are reported missing, and that death toll is expected to rise as well. Absolute tragedy.
It's been reported that the US House of Representatives will open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Senior Republican Kevin McCarthy said the investigation would focus on allegations of abuse of power, obstruction and corruption.
That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
The head of British Petroleum, BP's chief executive, Bernard Looney, has resigned with immediate effect after it emerged he had failed to fully disclose previous relationships with colleagues.
The UK economy shrank in July as wet weather hit the construction and retail industries. That's according to official figures out this morning. It's worse than analysts had predicted and continues a trend of weak economic growth in the UK.
President Putin has welcomed Kim Jong-un from North Korea to the space rocket launch site in Russia. They're in deep talks. It's expected they will negotiate over trade deals and armaments.
Right, stay with us. Lots more coming your way, including the sport with Paul Coit. That's after your weather forecast.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain arriving later, so we'll start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that it'll be a milder night tonight than last night. Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast it'll feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Right, it's time to go through the sports with broadcaster Paul Coit. Bring us up to date, Paul.
Yes, England win against Scotland. I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. I think England, pretty much, I hate to say it, they outclassed Scotland last night. 3-1.
As I predicted.
You did predict it.
Yeah, I thought it would have been a wee bit closer and things, and it certainly was passionate, and they found a role for Phil Foden.
They did. He looked very good as well, and I thought Jude Bellingham was fantastic. It was just a gap in class.
Yes.
You know, and the last thing I want to do is sound patronising.
No, but you're right. When you look at the names on the sheet, you know who you recognise from the Scottish team and who you recognise from the English team. It's just obvious.
It's a world class side, and 3-1. But the thing is, Scotland, though, I mean, they had their eyes on Oslo last night.
Yes, that all went complicated, didn't it?
It did, because Norway were playing Georgia, and if Norway drew with Georgia, it would have meant that Scotland would have then qualified for the European Championship finals.
It's a bit like the triple lock.
OK.
2-1 to Norway, which basically means it will then go on to another game, but Scotland are not going to have a problem. I'm going to say that, touch wood. But they've played so well, 6 on the trot that they've won before the England
why
game.
are they not going to have a problem?
I just think they look good. I think they're going to do fine. They're already on 15 points.
They got to win.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, if they probably just draw the next one, they're going to be through.
Yeah.
So there's still plenty of games to go. So as far as the European Championships, they're absolutely fine. Simona Halep. Now, what do you think about this?
Well, it's a big ban, but I think it has to send a clear message. You cannot use any performance-enhancing substances in top-level tennis.
We've seen so much of this recently. It used to be mainly athletics, is that we would see drugs bans. We had it with Conor Benn, happened in the boxing recently, and also Paul Pogba, we were talking about yesterday, is tested positive. Simona Halep, now this happened at the US Open, this was last year, but it's taken, so there was a ban straight away, whereas it had to be tested and then to go through
another test,
etc., etc. Well, and she's going to take it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport because she's going to contest the ban because it's 4 years, and it's roxadustat, which is an anti-anemia drug, which stimulates production of red blood cells in the body, and we know what that means. Basically, pumps more blood, means more energy, means stronger, and obviously
But
will
I wonder
elate
what
the
that
tennis.
feels like. I wonder, I mean, I know it does those things to you, but I wonder, do you feel a
Feeling
benefit?
you fancy some.
I mean, if I was to be enhanced
I'd
in
like some
some
extra
way.
red blood cells.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we need things to get us up in the morning, keep us going through the day.
Yeah.
And...
Well, I can tell you, not from personal experience, but Paul Pogba, when they were talking about the testosterone they were taking, not only the fact that makes them strong, I mean, we're going to make them strong, we're going to turn into Steve Austin again, stronger, more powerful, but also mood lifts as well, and makes them more
confident. That would be good for you. That would be good.
So it makes you more aggressive, testosterone.
Oh, no,
Fighty.
I don't want that.
You don't need any more of that. You don't need any
don't need any more of that.
I don't want any testosterone. I think, guys. Just FYI.
So anyway, no performance-enhancing drugs,
Maybe we
please,
should go
whatsoever.
on a test to see if mood and performance enhancing
could benefit breakfast
us
presenters.
and keep our bosses happy, that we sit and smile all day, sort of, and look really happy to be here. I wonder what you could...
Laughing gas.
See,
laughing gas, was that not illegal now?
Oh, yeah, that might be illegal.
But I'd be worried because the thing is, next year, the Trick Awards there, you go up to accept the other award and they go, excuse me, but we've heard that there's been performance-enhancing drugs involved in this TV show.
It could be cancelled.
And it's going to be cancelled. It's not worth taking the chance, because once you get the medal and then it gets taken away, that's even worse than not doing it.
That's fair enough.
So anyway, Simona Halep is out for 4 years. That will leave her... She'll be 35. I mean, she's earned about 32 million quid. I mean, as far as money's concerned, she's going to be OK. But, you know, you can't be doing it, and you're going to get caught. And there's more sports people that we don't know about that are doing it, but the more that are caught, the better, because it's not right. It's not fair.
What's happening next? Rugby World Cup, anything? Anybody coming up?
Yes.
Big games?
Well, yeah, I want to talk about a quick word about Tom Curry.
He's banned.
He's banned. He's banned for 2 games for the high tackle. So he's going to have. He got sent off after 3 minutes in that game against Argentina. So there's a little question about
being hyped up right from the start. That used to happen quite a lot in soccer, whereby everybody was so hyped up, and then
Gaza in '91 did it. In the FA Cup final. You know, there was 2 fouls straight away, so hyped up, and then he got himself a bad injury, out for a year. So there is, he's always keeping... I've spoken to players as well to say, look, when you score a goal, a really important goal, a cup final, World Cup final, you know, all fans, we all go crazy, we get overexcited. You've got to keep a lid on it. And there was a story about Roger Osborne, who played for Ipswich back in the cup final of '78, and he scored the winning goal for Ipswich. And he got so excited, and he got so pumped up, they had to take him off because he almost collapsed, because he was
overwhelmed.
Completely overwhelmed by the situation.
There must be very few things in life that would compare to scoring a goal in a cup final.
I think so. I think it's going to be very tricky. I know what it's like to watch it, but to actually score it, you've got to keep a lid on it.
And then there's that song, I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I know.
I want you.
I got a birthday for you. Do you want to do the birthday?
Oh, right. Whose
birthday? We've got a legend. Talking about drugs cheats, this man's the complete opposite. Even actually handed his medal back from 2000 when he found that Antonio Pettigrew, who was in the relay with him, in the 400-metre relay, had cheated. And although he didn't have to do it, he said, I don't want this medal because it's tainted. The great Michael Johnson. Now, Michael Johnson Johnson. It was tainted metal.
Mm.
Yeah. But anyway, Michael Johnson, it's his birthday today, former 200 and 400-metre world record holder, commentator in athletics.
Yeah.
I think we got a picture of him in his gold shoes when he ran in the Olympics with the amazing gold shoes. I hope we've got those because I'm wearing my gold shoes as a trick. There he is. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that.
Upright stance, a very bizarre stance for a runner.
Very erect.
He was very, very quick. Very, very quick. No testosterone. But how old do you think?
Oh, gosh.
I think
Michael Johnson.
45.
45 for Michael Johnson?
I think a bit older than that, although he looks fabulous, and I do watch a lot of his commentary on the old Athletics.
Yes.
He's got grey hair now,
I think
hasn't
late 50s, I've got to say.
You think so?
Yeah.
Give me a number.
55, 56, something like that.
That's not late 50s, it's like mid-50s.
OK, mid-50s.
So you're going to go 55? 56?
56.
She's right.
Is she spot on?
You do this.
Spot on.
56, that's 2-1 to you
In
now.
fairness to she,
I am a witch.
she studies him with more interest than a normal person.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's his erect stance.
That was the thing that did it. Thank you very much indeed. So, Paul, if you could provide a urine test when you leave the studio.
OK.
We just need to check.
If I'm still there, it's just that I can't go. That's all it is.
OK.
Yeah.
Drug enhancing.
Right, fine.
Everything to do with it. Paul Coit, that was your sport, sort
I
of.
never know where it's going to go in the sport. and I
Neither
love
do
that.
we.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to go, so that's the end of it.
And I know where we're going to go. We're going to go to a farm very shortly. We are celebrating Back British Farming Day here at GB News, and we'll be telling you why it is important to buy British. You've got to look out for that Union Jack on all your produce and support our farming industry.
Support our farmers.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We've got so much to talk about in the papers today, and we're enjoying talking to David Miller and Scarlett Maguire. And today is Back British Farming Day. So, folks, it is important to do this. I'm very shortly we're going to go to a farm in Essex. Are you conscious, Scarlett, of... I mean, I suppose there's no reason not to support British farming unless, I suppose, it's got to do with price.
Yeah, I think it's very tough for a lot of people who do go into the shop and think what's the cheapest I can do, but I do think that in a way we're cutting off our noses to spite our face. Is that actually if we don't back British farmers, then we're going to lose and we're going to pay far more.
I quite consciously in Northern Ireland I buy Ulster cheddar. I buy Cumber potatoes, I deliberately look, apples from Armagh, whatever. So, but I just feel proud doing that. I feel it's the right thing
the
to do.
Inbox is already coming in, lots of farmers getting in touch, actually, in the last few moments. Lynn Hale. Eamonn, my grandson's 17, he loves farming. He goes to work at 8, sometimes not home till 10 o'clock at night. People don't realise how hard it is, but he absolutely loves it.
It's hard.
And just so many farmers are big fans, actually, of GB News. Are you a big fan of British farming?
Yeah, of
British
course, but I think there was a time when the heavy subsidies that were paid to British farming in the EU caused a great deal of resentment. And Punch had a great cartoon which had a picture of a guy in a top-of-the-range Mercedes with his window sticker, "Support British farming." And, there was a sense then. But I think everyone is pulling much more together now. And I actually do think that what I find awful is that we were paying money to people to just leave land to rot, while paying also money to import.
There's something just
how they were
immoral about that. Just sick
Spanish agriculture.
Well, look, let's go to a farm in Essex. Our reporter, all togged out for this British Farming Day, Back British Farming Day, Ellie Costello. We go live to her and see. Looking good there in your country greens.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I couldn't find my wellies this morning, though, so not exactly togged out, but I've tried my best. Good morning. We're on Shoreditch Farms this morning in Essex. You can see the tractor behind me there and 1,600 acres of wheat and barley behind us. It's Britain's most grown crop, and you'll find that on our supermarket shelves in flour, in bread and in cereals, all of the yummy stuff. And today in the agricultural sector, it's a really big day. It's Back British Farming Day, and the call is the general public to try and buy British and to support your local farmer. So let's bring in now Ed Ford, who's a partner at Shoreditch Farms. Good morning to you, Ed. Now, lots of people do want to buy British, but it's a cost issue, isn't it? We're in a cost of living crisis. It's expensive.
It is expensive, but all I would urge is that you buy as good a quality produce as you can afford, and always look for that red tractor logo. Then you know it's from a British source. You've had a really challenging 18 months in the industry, haven't you? Paint a picture for us, if you will. Well, 18 months ago we had the Ukraine crisis just kicking off. Our costs spiralled, input costs went through the roof, and then we had the driest summer I've ever known. We had a drought, we had wildfires across the farms.
You actually had a wildfire here, didn't you?
Wildfire here, yeah, and it was the most scary thing ever. Absolutely terrible, wouldn't wish it on anyone. And then into the winter, we had a dry start to the winter, followed by a very cold, wet spring. And now we've just had harvest, and it's been the wettest harvest I've known for a very long time.
It took you double the time, didn't it?
It took us double the time to get the crops in. The quality slipped, and it was just a nightmare from start to finish.
Ed, listening to you now, it makes you think, who would want to be a farmer in this day and age? There are so many challenges.
I do ask myself the question quite regularly, but you know, I'm passionate about what we do, and what we're passionate about in this business is gearing up for the next generation to come into the industry, and we've got to supply the training. You know, agriculture in the UK is worth £10 billion. We've got to support that, we've got to get behind it, we've got to train for the future, and we need the British support to do that.
And that's what today is all about. And self-sufficiency as well, which we've learned after the Ukraine war, is really, really important. Well, Eamonn and Isabel, a new poll out today by the National Farmers Union says that farmers are actually the second most respected profession in the country, second only to nurses. So we know that farmers and the very hard work that they do is respected by people. But the message today is that one step further, not only respect your farmer, but support them. And if you can, out and about in the shops today, if you do see that red tractor logo, pop it in your basket, because that says it's from a source such as Ed Ford here, from a respected, reliable British source. So do get out there and try and support your local farmers.
Thank you for clarifying that, because we were saying earlier it is the Union Jack, and we've been corrected on emails. People saying actually that means it's been processed or packaged in the UK. It is the red tractor that says that it has been grown or reared in the UK. So thank you very much.
So, Elliot,
all the above.
We'll be back to see you at about 9:15, and you can show us more what's happening down on Ed's farm there. Thank you very much indeed.
Great.
Matter of fact, I found out an amazing thing today. So I was talking to colleague who works in the studio here, and it turns out that her daddy grows Weetabix. They harvest Weetabix. They grows the wheat for the Weetabix.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
Doesn't even
the things you discover, Eamonn. It's a very exciting life.
I thought it was quite interesting. I thought maybe there were stalks and there was like Weetabix on the head of each one of them or something like that. But
Eamonn,
yes,
I bet you didn't quite.
Whilst we are talking all things farms, we're going to go to your favourite video now, David, which is this cow being rescued from a sinkhole, because we're trying to show interesting videos that have gone viral on the internet as well. And this was in Durham. And you can just imagine this cow minding its own business, and a little bit of the ground swallowed it up, which is a very common occurrence here in the UK.
Not much fun to be the cow.
Not much fun to be the cow. And please be reassured, if you are watching this,
it looks
the cow
awful,
was
but
fine.
Yeah,
the cow lived to tell the tale.
I don't know if you'd be fine being hauled up by your ankles out of a
better
hole
than
like that.
down a hole.
But what we don't show here, and it is there on the video on YouTube, is that the cow recovers well. It stands up, and all its other little cow friends come and lick it and kiss it, which is all very nice.
But you know what I do think this shows is what the role of a farmer involves.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's pretty difficult to do something like that, you know, to haul an animal out. And they are incredibly capable people out in all weathers. It's a very tough job being a farmer, and we would miss them if they were gone. We should support them.
So, Scarlett, that's their work. And there's a survey out today, and this is reporting that you shouldn't give 100% at work. I'm sure there's a lot of people fall into that category anyway. What's the maximum effort to stop burnout?
So it's supposed to be 85% to stop burnout. I mean, this is the Daily Star. I mean, obviously, great reputable newspaper. We do look at it. I mean, you just wonder about what is 100%, what is 85%, and this is AI. The bane of our lives. We are going to hear far too much of it in the next sort of 20 years, saying that 100% is burnout. And I just think that actually the good way of doing it is you do it 100% for a short period of time, and then you take a break rather than just more
productive, fewer hours. That goes into the sort of 4-day week argument, where we actually do the longest hours anywhere in Europe, but are arguably the least productive.
And we've been the least productive for decades. Actually, it's been on and on. And it is the long hours, and it's the presenteeism where people would always put jackets on their chairs so that everybody knew there. And then there's this amazing thing of this working from home. Whereas I mean, I always knew that if you wanted to get something done, you worked from home. If you were going to write an essay, if you were going to do a report, you actually did it from home, because actually in the office, there's a lot of great things about the office. You chatter away, you can be creative, but actually if you want to really get work done, you do it on your own.
I think you know your own capacity, and, if I'm not operating to what I think is optimum level, I feel that I've cheated myself, and I don't feel as good. But if I'm doing stuff and I know I'm being productive, I actually feel better for it.
Yeah. That thing of only working at 85%.
I'm making no comment.
Why?
I just stumble through life.
Always at 100%.
I stumble through life and hope never to be asked to do anything too much.
I think there is a point that your 40%, if I may say, is probably the most average person's 100%. So you can amble through a lot of life. Other people have to work a bit harder, I think. Should we talk about
Chinese spies?
Chinese spies in the very thing. The MI5 warning that the Conservative Party had 2 possible spies who wanted to be candidates at the next election.
Well, there's no doubt about it that
this is the Times front page.
That what seemed to be the right approach, and I remember supporting it very strongly at the time, in Cameron's administration, of actually becoming the place in Europe where Chinese exporters could feel most at home and so on, has rather blown up in their faces because of the extent to which Chinese finance has been used, particularly in our universities. And it's quite horrendous, actually, the amount of Chinese import of students, not all of which one suspects are doing proper student-y things. See, the thing about the Chinese, it's such a big country, there's so many people there. It's like they've got to work hard to find things for these wretched spies to do. I don't think they're necessarily doing anything we have to be too troubled about. But there's no doubt that placing people in sensitive positions is a key element of the Chinese. And it's done a lot of it through the insurance, through the university sector. And I think we've just got to show that we're not prepared to tolerate this.
Were either of you two, I presume you both went to uni, did you know friends or people who were approached to be spies?
I went to the wrong university. David went to the right. I mean, basically, in our day, it was Cambridge even more than Oxford. That if you were at Cambridge, and it's incredible. So, I mean, John Snow was approached to be a spy. Right. John Snow was thrown out of Liverpool University, right, for being bad. But because his father was a bishop, it was so very much it was done on class. Whether David was approached, I'm not sure.
I actually rather agree with that, you know, because I'm a Burgess and Maclean fan, and I read all the books about these guys. And, of course, class runs through it. So I know people who were approached at Cambridge about getting involved with the security services. However, they'd all been properly educated. They'd all gone to public school. I was ruled out as a trash can little university boy, state school boy. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you really want to discover what a class-ridden Britain delivered to us in terms of a whole lot of significant things, you read these books about Burgess, Maclean and Philby. It's truly awful. Truly awful.
We aren't naming the researcher that was arrested earlier in the year, but if the papers are to be believed, and lots of people at home will have seen them, it seems like that public schoolboy image is still kind of who people are being targeted to become spies.
The big interview last night that Piers Morgan had was with the Spanish Football Federation President Luis Rubiales. Scarlett, you weren't impressed with the interview.
I wasn't impressed with the interview at all. I mean, it was soft. It was you know, it must be tough for you. It must be tough for your daughters. And then Rubiales goes, no, but it was a cultural difference because the Latin temperament is different. No, actually, all of us who watched it were in shock.
Well, the lady's Latin as well.
Well, precisely, and actually, and what was completely missing from the interview was the context. I mean, this was after, you know, a lot of the women in Spanish football had resigned, there'd been problems leading up to the. I mean, Rubiales this was just an excuse for him to feel sorry for himself. Whereas actually, what he should have done, he should never have done it, and then he should just have apologised instead of talking about fake feminism and how it really was all her fault. I mean, it was amazing. Thank goodness that actually they're clearing out of Spanish football what's going on, because it's I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, you know, you have these wonderful, I mean, really brilliant women footballers who unfortunately were much better than England, and they have that sort of background to deal with.
I mean, the very best that I could ever say about it is that it was forgot the word I was going to say, but it was presumptuous. That's what I was going to say. At the very least, you know, I just under no circumstances can I imagine right on the lips, kissing somebody right on the lips and thinking that's okay.
I know. I mean, you can understand lots and lots.
Yeah, but
of
you're
cheats.
not a macho, semi-shaven Spanish chap who thinks he rules the world and rules the world of football. You know, he's out there. He's got it. He's big. No doubt in every way you can be big. And basically, it's just bad, you know?
Can we talk about the aid ships and Penny Mordaunt's on the front of the Telegraph this morning? We had an interview. Christopher Hopes, our political editor, sat down with Penny Mordaunt. Actually, I have to say, it's gone down really badly with our viewers.
Oh, really? Why?
This MP is absolutely deluded. Her ship project is not green, it's not sustainable. And lots of people basically upset it's being used for aid. Lots of councils are going broke, says Martin. We cannot provide basic services. Answer, commission 3 boats to give money away. Brilliant. Thank goodness these clever people are leading us. And there's just so many emails. This person saying, I am incandescent with rage at this interview this morning. So there you go. It's gone down badly. Karen Moran saying, listening to Penny Mordaunt rattling on about the new aid ships. People in this country can't pay their bills.
But carrying that sword of state, or whatever she was carrying, suddenly translated into huge headlines and very positive.
At the coronation.
What she should have done is quit while she was ahead. Just set back. I'm the woman who carried the sword, and not somebody who's now, well, making a bit of a fool of herself.
Well, except this is British shipyards, it's British jobs, it's going to be privately run.
Flying the flag around the world.
I mean, I listened to the interview with Christopher Hope, and she said it's not taxpayer fund. It's not going to be taxpayer funded, and it's going to train apprentices, which is what we need. And, as you say, built in British shipyards. I mean, yes, Penny Mordaunt does have an ego problem, as do most MPs from all parties. But I'm not sure why people are that cross.
No. But you know what? There are people who wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to be cross. Who can I be cross with? And I do feel sorry for you if that is the case, that, you know, you're now cross with me because I'm pointing out you are cross. But you are a grump. You are a grump. And there's nothing more lovely that you can give the world is a smile, kindness, a charity. You know, just be lovely to people.
Actually, the wonderful thing about these emails is they've made Eamonn less grumpy. They've made you
Takes
want
one
to
to know
smile.
one, is what you're saying.
You girls
have no
are
feelings
definitely
whatsoever.
too young for this, but Eamonn will remember. There used to be a great series on Children's Hour called Toy Town, and there was Dennis the Dachshund and all those ones. And one of the key figures was a gentleman called Mr. Grouser. And he used to stumble on and say, it's disgraceful.
It's disgraceful.
It ought not to be allowed. And I am sorry to tell you that within our family, I am known as Mr. Grouser.
My stick.
So here we are, Isabel, with 2 grumpy old men.
Well, we're loving it. We say goodbye to Mr. Grouser and to Scarlett Maguire. See you both again very soon. And now we say hello to Annie Shuttleworth with your forecast.
Thank you.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain arriving later, so it will start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere, though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight, then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that, it'll be a milder night tonight than last night.
Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast it will feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Please stay with us. MP Tobias Ellwood, he is to face a motion of no confidence today in his role as chairman of the Defence Select Committee. Will he hold on to that job? Will he not? Why did he support the Taliban, or actually praise the Taliban? That is the question we will be asking.
And as always, we want you to continue to send in your thoughts, and we'll be reflecting lots of those on things right across the board, from British farming right down to aid ships. Stay with us. We'll have all of that and more in just a few moments' time.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It is exactly 9 o'clock. We say good morning to you on this Wednesday, the 13th of September.
You are tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. And here's what we've been covering so far this morning.
A big day for MP Tobias Ellwood as he fights to stay on as Defence Committee Chairman after appearing in a video in Afghanistan praising the Taliban.
Millions of pensioners are set to receive a lower than expected state pension next year as the government refuses to commit to raising the state pension to match official overall earnings figures.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un has held talks with President Vladimir Putin. It's believed the two leaders have discussed a deal to supply Moscow with military support for the invasion of Ukraine.
And we'll be bringing you the very latest weather updates with Annie Shuttleworth.
It's feeling much more like autumn this morning out there, but will the sunshine last through the rest of the day? Find out more with me later in your detailed forecast in the next hour.
And if you want to say hello, you want to make a comment, you want to complain about Penny Mordaunt's ships, keep doing that. GBviews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBnews.
Now, GB News has learned that Tobias Ellwood is to face a motion of no confidence today in his role as chairman of the powerful Defence Select Committee.
He's an MP. Bournemouth is his constituency. He's drawn criticism after appearing in a video praising the Taliban's role in governing Afghanistan. Have a look.
I'm here back in Helmand province in Afghanistan, courtesy of the Halo Trust, and all that's happened here since 9/11. This is a very different country in deal. It feels different now that the Taliban have returned to power.
Well, it may be hard to believe, but security has vastly improved. Corruption.
The consequence of all of that is that Ellwood will today be fighting to stay in his role on that Defence Committee. Let's go to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's got more on this exclusive. Christopher, what was he thinking?
I don't know. I mean, many think that it was a rush of blood to the head. He's a decent man, Tobias Ellwood. He's a patriot. He's trying to be helpful and constructive. He does take these tangential leaps sometimes in policy thinking. And what's frustrated the MPs on this Defence Select Committee, that job is one of the most senior jobs on the backbenches in Parliament. It pays £16,000 a year on top of his MP salary of £85,000 or so. So it's a significant job he has there. But the MPs feel that he goes a bit rogue sometimes on his comments. He goes away from where the committee is. Often committees should be consulted before their chairmen speak out. So that's their concern. They call it this Taliban tourism video, and they think it went too far. I mean, he put this video online himself. He took it down. He apologised. But I think this, for many, it's a step too far. What's happened since then is, Eamonn and Isabel, is that the MPs put down a vote of no confidence in Mr Ellwood. Remember those days when Boris Johnson votes of no confidence? Well, one of them is in the chairman of this committee. And then the MPs that can vote on that from tomorrow, Thursday. And the idea today is the last chance for Mr Ellwood to plead for his job, to plead for their confidence. So it's a dramatic moment in Parliament because of the seniority of that position which Mr Ellwood holds.
Christopher, can I ask you about the triple lock on pensions? Lots of discussion this morning and, frankly, some mixed messaging. We heard the Secretary of State for Department of Work and Pensions, Mel Stride, saying, look, we can't guarantee, or, being a bit sort of vague about whether or not there would be this big boost for pensioners in the spring of next year, which is as a result of these better-than-expected wage figures yesterday. But then we spoke to Maria Caulfield first thing this morning. She said, absolutely, under a Conservative government next spring, we will be sticking to the triple lock. Well, which is it?
I think that they're not sure, Isabel, and you're correctly identifying there some uncertainty. So we asked the PM, Rishi Sunak, about whether he would commit to it at the next election. He wouldn't say that at the weekend meeting of the G20 in New Delhi. What he said to us was it's long-standing Conservative policy going back to David Cameron's days when they came up with this idea of increasing the state pension by CPI inflation in September 2.5% or average wages. The problem is that wages and inflation are going up. Now, one idea mooted today is they might take out bonuses from the way they calculate wage inflation, which could bring it down to around 7.8%. But even then, if inflation is down to 3% next year, it means a double inflation jump for people taking the state pension. And the concern is that's unfair to other people because there may well be pressure downwards on benefits at the same point. So we have this debate every single year around September because this number set this month, set this week, applies to April next year. And I think they're not sure what to do. They may try. They might. I doubt they'll tweak it next April because it's so near to the date of the expected election, which will be in the summer or the autumn. So they'll probably work out a new rule maybe for the manifesto, because there's a report out last week saying it might cost £40 billion within a few decades. So the feeling is it's how far can you guarantee the money? The answer, of course, to the final say on this is that pensioners vote, Isabel and Eamonn, and that's why they get this more generous offer, I think, from the Tory government.
And can we talk about Penny Mordaunt as well? You did a big sit-down interview. We've played it this morning. She's unveiling these 3 new aid ships, which will be built in British shipyards.
That's all the good news. The bad news is, Christopher, from our point of view, we've been really surprised at the adverse reaction that's come in about
Well,
this.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, but it's people who are saying the cost of living crisis, money could be spent better. But as we were pointing out, this is private money, as we understand it. These would be merchant ships, independently operated. We're not sure.
I think it's the word aid ships is what's upset people, but it's a job creator ultimately.
Okay. Well, they're called multi-role vessels, and what they might do is deal with illegal migration in parts of the world, that kind of thing. What they want, the people behind it, and Penny Mordaunt is backing it as the Portsmouth North MP. Of course, she's also well known to us and viewers as a cabinet minister, and also she's a naval reservist. She loves the sea, she loves the ocean. What they're doing there is they're trying to get the support for this idea. They want the government to commit to using them when they need them for aid relief, that kind of thing. If there's a hurricane in the Caribbean, they can send the ships out there, and then they can try and help people. That's all it is. And the UK government does it already, but often they use naval vessels which are better deployed elsewhere. So these vessels will be staffed by 50% apprentices. They won't cost us anything apart from a guarantee to use them when we need them. And the idea is to rent them out privately. I think I can't see a bad idea about it, but I would love to hear more from the viewers.
Well,
maybe you wouldn't, actually. But anyway, Chris, really appreciate good political roundup. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoyed the interview with Penny Mordaunt, and we'll wait to see what is ahead for Tobias Ellwood. I mean, is it just me? But I think there should be a statue to Tobias Ellwood, and those Westminster Bridge attacks and what he did there is heroics that particular day.
Spot on. He's a decent guy, and he's popular. He often is right thinking, as people would like to say, but he was totally off the mark on this, totally wacky, and just so wrong for all those women who are being oppressed in Afghanistan. The idea that the Taliban in any way is a good thing is offensive, so I think he's in trouble.
Right, is the economy in trouble? Let's find out from Liam Halligan. The figures today, a surprising shrink, not too much of a shrink, 0.5%, but
it's a pretty big month-on-month shrink, so that's compared to July last year.
Okay.
Let's have a look at the numbers. These are the GDP numbers, of course, the sum total of all goods and services, all transactions in the economy. So the ONS told us this morning that GDP fell by 0.5% in July. They're blaming mainly strikes, wet weather. Strikes in particular hit the healthcare sector. That impacts GDP. I think, on balance, the fact that the economy has stalled quite markedly means that the Monetary Policy Committee, when it meets on the 21st of September, might actually now think harder about holding interest rates. The likes of me have been arguing for them to hold interest rates for a long time. We've had 14 interest rate rises, Isabel, of course.
Well, Jeremy Hunt seemed fairly unconcerned in the statement he put out about it this morning. He said there are many reasons to be confident about the future. We were among the fastest in the G7 to recover from the pandemic, and the International Monetary Fund have said we will grow faster than Germany, France and Italy in the long term. He's keen not to let Britain be talked down too much as a result of this, but he won't be happy with a contraction, surely.
He won't be happy with the contraction. And also, within the last month, suddenly the ONS has found lots of growth behind the sofa, Isabel. We were the only country in the G7 that hadn't fully recovered from the pandemic. Now we're in the middle of the pack among those who have fully recovered from the pandemic. So, look, GDP actually did rise during the second quarter, April, May and June. And we wait until that Bank of England interest rate decision on the 21st.
There was the big announcement about the new Mini being built, the new electric Mini, and that's at Ellesmere Port. And you went up there, and we've got a report about that, which we'll have a look at now.
They've made cars at Ellesmere Port since the early 60s. This Cheshire plant's now leading the charge towards emissions-free motoring, the first UK factory for electric vehicles only. This repurposed facility will make 50,000 electric vans a year, the first of which just rolled off the production line. They'll be sold under the Vauxhall, Fiat, Citroën and Peugeot brands, all owned by the global conglomerate Stellantis. Often threatened with closure, Ellesmere Port now looks secure.
Firstly, fantastically flexible and resilient workforce here, so that's an absolute key part of it, and a real testament to them driving down the costs of production. And the second part is that Vauxhall is the market leader on electric commercial vehicle sales, over 30% market share. Fantastic product range, and again, it just shows the confidence we've got in that product range to build more here.
Workers understand to their fingertips what this new investment means.
It's a big boost to the local economy. A lot of other big companies have been relocated from Ellesmere Port over the years, and the fact that Stellantis have felt that they can keep the factory here, it's just a massive boost for everyone.
EV production is complex, as plant manager Diane Miller explains. It relies on these heavy battery units, expensive to transport. The UK has only one battery-making gigafactory, which is Chinese-owned. And for now, power units used at Ellesmere Port will be shipped from China.
The modules are not made in the UK, yes, they come from China, but we put them together into the battery pack to what the customer would effectively see as the battery pack. So we have 22 people working doing that, putting 18 of the modules that come from China together, connecting them together, testing them, putting them in the safe, secure area, and that's how we produce the battery pack.
EVs now make up 40% of UK car production. Sales of new petrol and diesel vehicles are set to be banned in Britain from 2030. But electric vehicles need huge amounts of lithium, cobalt and copper, commodities often found in difficult parts of the world. They're also expensive and with a relatively short lifespan. And given the UK's patchy charging network, will the 2030 ban really happen?
We're just not going to have the infrastructure in place. And if you haven't got the infrastructure, it's not going to work. And I think the second reason is that there are going to be increasing doubts about whether EVs are the right technology. We all agree that we want to get to net zero and have cleaner cities, and that transport's going to be a big part of that. But are EVs the answer? It might be other technologies. We need a little bit longer to find out.
Car makers are betting big on EVs. Stellantis here at Ellesmere Port, with BMW making the new Mini EV at Cowley. But is this the right technology? Much of the car-buying public remains unconvinced. Liam Halligan, GB News, at Ellesmere Port.
Liam, why is the public still unconvinced about this?
I'd say there's pockets of the public. There are some people in certain North London postcodes, an EV is an essential accessory. You can't go to a local dinner party unless you've got an electric vehicle. There are other parts of the country where the idea of trading in vans and commercial vehicles, people running small businesses for EVs is preposterous. Look, EVs, they weigh a lot. The batteries weigh about half a tonne. Is that really efficient? They need lots of lithium, cobalt, manganese, rare earths found in difficult parts of the country. The charging network is still very patchy. There's a lot of range anxiety out there. And the reality is, whether it's Tesla's forecourts in the States, Eamonn, or it's car dealerships here across the country, these EVs just aren't flying off the shelves. They're very expensive. People are worried about their second-hand value. And I think if the government wants to take people with them, it might be better to persuade rather than to compel people to buy EVs. Is this really the best technology?
There's so many questions on this whole front of going green and net zero and all that sort of thing. ULEZ being one of them, electric cars.
Will the 2030 ban come into place? A lot of people don't think it will, and I'm talking about a lot of people in the cabinet I've spoken to and across the car industry.
OK.
Thank you very
Liam,
much.
appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
With the time at 14 minutes past 9, not long to wait now until Britain's newsroom. And Andrew Bev join us in the studio to tell us what is coming up. What have you got this morning?
Lots and lots.
Good.
And we're really exercised by what the Defence Secretary has said in the Daily Telegraph today, that human rights laws is helping terrorists. Because we're in that wretched European Convention on Human Rights. We basically say we should get out of it. He's saying if we could not have done what America did, but getting bin Laden, when they sprang bin Laden's camp, killed him, shot him dead, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's so interesting when people come out of positions of power.
Absolutely.
They suddenly...
They tell the truth.
Yeah, and
they tell it as it is.
Yeah, yeah. And we're also just looking, as we come on air, about BP's shares being down nearly 2%. And this is because their chief executive, Bernard Looney, was having relationships in the office.
Plural.
Well, only a couple, apparently, in a couple of years. And I mean, what he gets up to is his business, in my opinion.
His job.
Well,
absolutely.
He was leading the board, wasn't he, was what I've read.
Well, maybe he just didn't tell the board what he was up to in the bedroom.
Well,
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I thought there might be more to it. You know, could it be compromise of...
But the share price down to nearly 2%.
I mean,
that's a lot.
He was making £10 million in pay and bonuses before he stepped down, so it's no wonder he was quite popular in the office, maybe, one might say.
Been that easily bought, Beverly, is that what you're saying?
He's quite an attractive man, anyway. But well, you know...
Auditioning?
But no, I am not. But to what extent should your bosses be allowed to tell you who you can and can't have relationships with in the office?
I don't want to know who my bosses are sleeping with, by the way.
No,
I'm not
don't.
interested.
Yeah, no, quite right. Yeah.
Anyway, there's some fun debates this morning. We've got... No, good, carry on.
I was going to say, you won't be interested because he's not called James.
I
It's the rule, isn't it?
have relationships with men.
And we are also talking about pensions and triple lock.
Yeah, big story.
Thank you.
Big story.
We're talking about farms. When we come back, it is British Farming Day. Are you backing it? We're down in the farm next.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Here we are on Back British Farming Day. Are you prepared to put your money where your mouth is on all of this? This is an annual National Farmers Union campaign, basically to say, if you believe in British produce, we need your support, so please do buy it.
And if you aren't sure what you can actually get your hands on that is British, you should have a look at this hamper that the National Farmers Union have very kindly sent us this morning.
Well, Isabel, there's crackers. There's crackers in here. There's cheese, British cheese.
Lovely wheel of cheddar there.
Where's that from, incidentally?
It said Black Bomber, extra mature cheddar, and I will find out where that's from while you look at the next item.
There's pickle. There's even champagne here. There's apples, British apples. British tea.
British tea, that's the one that surprised us this morning.
Sure about that.
But look, if you really want to not only keep the countryside looking the way it does with the hedgerows in the fields and all the beautiful tractors and the animals, but also you want to maintain prices, keep control of it and support British jobs, then you really should be supporting your local farmers, and it's good for the planet as well.
Well, the Food and Farming Secretary, Theresa Coffey, has provided a boost to farmers with a package of measures to help people buy British and provide farmers with the money they need to invest in their businesses.
Yes.
Now, we have got a farm in Essex where Ellie Costello is for us this morning. Yes, I know she's not ready. I'm talking, I'm trying. Everybody panics that I'm going to throw to Ellie and she's not there. She's not there. But as soon as we get a satellite link up in the sky, she will be there.
She's on a tractor, we're told, so it might be a bit tricky, but we're looking forward to seeing that. And interesting, talking about tractors, this is what you should be looking for if you're in the supermarket or if you're in your local shop. It's the red tractor, which indicates, you can see it there on the left of your screen, certified British produce. This is an enhanced welfare symbol as well. And then the Union Jack behind it, that also means that it's been packaged or indeed processed here in the UK. So that's what you want to see, the tick, the tractor and the Union Jack there. And that means you know exactly what you're getting.
Just as we wait for Ellie to appear for us, I mean, you know, I worked as a farming reporter and it is not my job, hard graft, their job to be, you know, could you give your life to it, Isabel? Could you actually give your life, work the hours that they're working?
Yeah, they can't go on holiday, they can't leave their crops, they can't leave their livestock.
They're weather dependent.
All the hours, Christmas Day, you name it. When it comes to things like lambing season, it's all through the night. And, you know, then they're also at the behest of the weather. You know, we saw, I don't know how many of you watched Jeremy Clarkson's farm.
Clarkson's farm,
and that was just so good at highlighting the issues and, you know, just totally at the mercy of whether it's too much rain or too much, as you say, fires as well. It is a difficult job to do.
It can be nigh on impossible, I suppose, as well. And then if you form any sort of affinity with your animals, you then have to be in a situation where basically they are produce for you. You've got to send them to slaughter. So it is difficult, and it's very, very difficult to hand the farm over to someone else in the family because they may not want to do it or not. But however, it is Back British Farming Day. I hope that you are going to do that, and we will unfortunately can't go to Ellie because it didn't work today. But we're with you all the way, British farmers. Support British farming, and we'll see you again in the morning from 6. Have yourselves a good day.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be a dry day for many today, but the cloud will thicken through the day and some wet and windy weather will arrive later. So we've got off to quite a fresh but sunny start out there, and the sunshine will continue towards lunchtime, and many of us seeing a dry day. The cloud will break up across the southeast as well, bringing some sunshine here later. However, across Northern Ireland and into western areas of northern Scotland, we'll start to see some quite heavy rain arriving later, so we'll start to cool off a little towards the afternoon. Elsewhere though, feeling fresher than yesterday, highs of around 19 or 20 degrees, much closer to average for the time of year. Tonight then, we're going to see this rain push more into Scotland, bringing some heavy spells of rain throughout the night. This will push into parts of Cumbria later on in the night as well. Staying dry and clear further south and east of this, with some mist and fog developing as well. The winds will also pick up, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour are possible, and because of that, it'll be a milder night tonight than last night. Then on Thursday, that rain sinking down into Wales and northern areas of England, bringing these areas a cloudier and damper day, particularly across the hills in western areas around here. A drier day across Scotland with the risk of the odd shower, and in the southeast, it will feel milder again with highs of around 23, possibly 24 degrees. We'll see more of that milder weather into the weekend.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're going to be back in just a moment. A busy show today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about triple lock under real threat now, apparently, if you're a pensioner. Very interesting.
Yeah, whether you're going to lose your money or not. And also, Labour have committed to banning 0 hours contracts.
Really popular with students and young people.
The contracts themselves are, not banning them may not be very popular with them. That's right. So a lot to get.
And can you have a relationship in the office? Not if you work for BP, apparently.
Not if you're us.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate.